So welcome officially, Susie. Thanks for that session. Really good session. A lot of inspiration flowing through there. So I feel inspired. So thank you for that. So we're going to dive into our straight into our teaching for today, which is around today's workbook lesson 95, and that's all about accepting our one self. I am one self united with my creator or my source.
Well, that's what we've just done.
Limitless in power and in peace, which is really an inspiring message. And he's really bringing it now. The lessons, if you notice, very much about the self. It's like claiming that your true identity. We've done a lot of the preliminary mind training was nothing I see means anything, and these perceptual exercises. And now it's about claiming your true identity, saying this is who I am. I am one self, united with my source, limitless in power and peace and strength. So we're going to go diving into that today. And let's have a look at our quote for the day and a little bit of teaching around that first. So give me a moment to bring that one up. And okay. All right. Let me share my screen. Okay. So the quote is very short. One of the shortest ones I think I've ever shared. I think probably is the shortest one I've shared. Four words. Can I read that?
No problem.
The Zen master said that when he was asked to explain the deeper meaning of Zen Buddhism. No self, no problem. So the quote reveals both the root cause of all problems and the solution to all these problems in just four simple words. Could the truth be this simple? The entire physical universe, governed by the laws of time and space, stems from our identification with the false self-concept. Therefore, all problems that seem to arise within its so-called reality must also stem from this false self-concept. Right? So everything that you perceive in this world is a projection of a false self-concept. That's what the Course is trying to teach us. There's nothing that is divorced from your false self-concept on the level of form. Underneath that lies your true self, but that's the formless, that's the pure formless awareness. But everything in form is connected to the false self-concept. So when people say, well, we're all one with the universe and everything's connected, it's because it's all come from the same source. It's the false idea of the ego that we are a separate self. If we have a look at this diagram, and this explains it quite well. Let's bring it up. The diagram I refer to so often. There we go. That one sent into hell. So it demonstrates, it shows very clearly that we have this idea of separation, which leads to a separate self concept. That's the ego. That's what we call the super ego. The idea of separation, believed in, made real, brings this ego identity into existence. So it now has a seemingly separate identity from source, from God, love, oneness, pure formless awareness. And so that self the little self, which is the ego, which is consciousness, which is the belief in separation, which is Satan, which is the universal mind, the many names for it. That self is behind all problems. That's what the Buddhist master's teaching was. Because that self-concept kicked off the individual identity, the belief in that, the guilt and the sin for apparently destroying God, love, oneness. So now we have this fundamental existential guilt that underlies our very existence. Just for existing, the ego feels guilty. It can't handle that sense of sin and guilt, so it has to, and that generates a sense of fear, because now we feel like we've done something wrong, we deserve to be punished. So you get the false expectation of punishment appearing real. That is overwhelming for the mind, so it projects all of this out into an attack, and we attack ourselves, and we attack God. And that attack is the projection of all of this guilt, sin, fear into now a seemingly manifest world, right? which is why the Big Bang occurred. It was intense energy projected out, thought projected out, and made seemingly manifest and real into now a physical universe, which then, because of its origin, can only separate and fragment more and more. So we have many different forms of seeming entities that seemingly have an existence here. Animals, plants, human beings. There's just billions, trillions, and trillions and trillions of fragmented parts to this mind, but it's still only the same mind. That's the truth behind it. Irrespective of all the separation and all of the guilt and the sin that's got projected out, and the accusation, the blame, and the complaint, and the attack, and all the games we play, and the sense of being a victim, and living a helpless, innovative little life of limitation, lack, loneliness, and suffering before we die. Irrespective of all of that, there's still only the one truth, that God is love, and we are that love. That's still the truth. And so our job becomes now just to see through the illusions of the separate self and all the problems that it's created, and see that actually there's no problem, because in this awareness there's no problem. Everything's perfect. It is pure formless awareness of perfect love. Everything's perfection, and that is still there in your mind. So no self, no separate self, no problem. Beautifully summarized. There in those 4 words, you have this eternal wisdom of the ages, which, if you apply, will mean that ultimately there's no problems in your life. You transcend all of them, and you just go back to source. So it's quite a, when you unpack a simple quote like that, it's got all this deep wisdom in it. So what is this false self-concept, you may be asking yourself? Just a mistaken idea that you are an individual self with your own unique identity, personality, life situation, and yes, all the problems that are seemingly an integral part of your life. So the idea that you're an individual self, that you have your own unique problems, this is the idea of that is the problem. So we only have one problem, and that's a false identification. So if this is true, every authentic spiritual path agrees that it is, and the answer to all your problems becomes obvious. Let go of your false self-concept and allow it to be replaced with your true self. Easier said than done, you may say, but fortunately, you now have a clear and effective way to do this in very practical, so-called baby steps, while you live out your seemingly human life in the dream world. Through this very carefully designed, intelligently designed mind training program that Yeshua's given us in A Course in Miracles. And you compare that to the Buddha's teaching. Interesting, the Buddha never said there was a true self or a creator or God. So what he preferred to do was just instruct his followers in meditation. He taught the Vipassana meditation as a mind training practice. It would help them transcend all sense of self, separate self, and reveal the true nature of pure formless awareness or reality, which he called nirvana, to them experientially. So the Buddhist teaching is no self, no self ultimately. So at this level, pure formless awareness of perfect love or nirvana is just pure awareness. The Buddha went into that, and he was trying to show people how to experience that. Where I think the Course is helpful is that he has an intermediary step. This is why we have the Holy Trinity idea, because he has the idea of a true self, which the Buddha never really had. He's like, well, just find this awareness in your mind. Yeshua is saying, find the true self, the one self, the Christ, the Son of God that you are. We could call it soul with a capital S, the extension of perfect love, the Buddha nature, you could call it. The Atman in Sanskrit, there's the idea of the Atman, the higher mind, the higher awareness, many names for it. But this is helpful because it allows you now to interact in this world from a self. Because the question is, if you just pure formless awareness, how do you even perceive? How does that pure formless awareness interact in the world? Well, the answer is it doesn't. So the Eastern teaching was just remove yourself from the world and just spend as much time in this as you possibly can in meditation. And in the end, if you do that, it can work. Many of these paths, produced enlightened beings. But in our practicality of our world, and particularly in a Western society, Yeshua knows, well, you're quite busy. You've got families, you've got lives, you've got jobs, you've got all these experiences happening. It's much more helpful if we can give you a thought system that can help you to reinterpret all of that from the perspective now of a higher awareness, of an awareness of oneness. And so that's really what this thought system is. The Holy Trinity is an operating system to help you to get out of the dream world and transcend and go back into pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is the same place as the Buddha pointed to and every spiritual master's pointed to. But it's how you get there is the question. Because if you're here and you're stuck in time and space and you're having these experiences as a seeming human being, quite dualistic, to just go into pure formless awareness of perfect love, it's a big gap, isn't it? It's a huge stretch. So how do you then live your life? How do you live your life? Well, you live it from the perspective of the true self, the capital self, the Christ, which is one. It's derived from source, but it's an identity, temporary identity in this world, but it's the highest identity you can have as a human being. I am one self now. I'm not a separate self. I'm one self, and everyone is that one self. See, so that idea of the one self unites you with your source, because underlying it is oneness, pure formless awareness of perfect love, as we call it. And now it becomes a placeholder for this to come through, and from that one self, the true self or the Christ, you can have true perceptions or Christ vision. These are the miracles. This is forgiveness or letting go, or flow or intuition, or other paths call it surrender. Acceptance is another word for it. Salvation, at-one-ment, enlightenment, awakening. These are all names for a process in your mind that is happening, inspired by the one self, and then the Holy Spirit, which is these blue arrows, is just the transformation of your perception. It's the change of mind that's happening, inspired by the one self. So it's the correction of false perceptions. And so the Holy Spirit, being the mechanism of the transformation of perception, leads you back into an identification with your true self, the Christ. And the more that's reinforced, that Christ self, the closer you get to God. More and more you start communicating with this domain of pure formless awareness of perfect love, and ultimately the Christ and the Holy Spirit just fade back into oneness, and there's only God ultimately. So that kind of explains the mystery of the Trinity. The Trinity, the Christ and the Holy Spirit are not separate entities. They're just useful extensions of oneness in this world that help us in this world to correct our perceptions and make our way home, find our way home. So they're like guides on the path. But ultimately, when you're at your destination, you don't need the Christ or the Holy Spirit because you are one with God, and that's the only reality. Okay. So does that I've talked about this before. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, a lot more so, because I guess we had that session earlier, but it seemed to be here at the right time, isn't it? I believe this is what we've been saying this morning, and it's hitting a lot deeper, a lot better.
So the Christ, you see what we did this morning was, it's really okay as your true self in this world. It's still able to interact in the world, have perceptions, to be a positive force in the world. How does that work? How does that look for you? And so it's the true self and the Holy Spirit that are now going to be in charge of Susie's life for the rest of your life there. And that allows you to be in the world, be an inspired agent of the Spirit in the world, but not of the world. Because you realize that you are coming from, you're always connected to your source. So you interact in the world, you can be highly effective in the world, as people like Yeshua and the Buddha demonstrated. You know, their lives were highly effective, highly productive. They changed the world. So you know, you can work on that level, but they never identified with the world. They didn't think that they were the world. And the self-concept, the separate self that people believe they are, locked into this red box, you know, that's transcended. You're coming from a higher awareness, your Christ self, which is connected to your source. And that's what makes it inspired. And miracles come from that inspiration. So you see, it's a very practical, it's an operating system that has been given to us to help us to live in a highly effective, functional, productive, miraculous way in this world and be the light of the world. Actually do it in practice. If you're just pure formless awareness of perfect love, there's a tendency to not do anything, isn't there? And just sit and you know, just be in that beingness. And that's okay. And you might have times when you do that. But realistically, in our lives, in our world, is it realistic for you to do that all the time? Probably not. You know, you've got responsibilities, you've got a family, you interact with people. There's a requirement maybe to earn some money. So it's guiding it, but you now, it's like a step down transformer. Think of it in this way. It's like a high voltage frequency comes from the power station when it's produced. And then it has to come and it's stepped down via a substation into a voltage that is now accessible. It's usable by, you know, computers and household appliances and stuff. Otherwise, it would just blow the circuits because it's too powerful. So this is kind of the step down transformer, the true self, and then the Holy Spirit. Step it down, and you can now perceive the world correctly, and that energy is useful and productive. It's not going to blow the circuits. It's channeled through in a way that's helpful and constructive. So it's the electricity just stepped down. It's the same power, but it's a power stepped down into form that's useful. And you know, your purpose is part of that form. As you go on your purpose will give you the experiences, all the experiences in time and space that you need to grow and play your part in that wonderment. Okay, so that's the background to all of this. So Course in Miracles gives us this methodology through forgiveness or letting go of your false self-concept. So the Buddha's teaching is very much transcend, just go into pure awareness, observe the emotions as they arise. That's the Vipassana technique. And if you're just in observation, there's a natural kind of a letting go or detachment from them, because you're just observing them and you don't make them real. The Course takes a slightly different approach. it talks about active forgiveness or letting go. So if a thought and emotion comes up, you recognize that this is coming from the false self, it's not what you want, and you consciously release it. By the way, it's all about letting go and finding the peace of God that surpasses all understanding that underlies it, but they have slightly different methodologies. So you systematically let go of all negative thoughts and emotions to reveal the Christ or oneself that you are, and everyone else is too. And because it's perfectly one, this true self concept will ultimately bring your mind into the state of pure formless awareness that the Buddha called nirvana, Yeshua calls the kingdom of heaven. So it's a bridge. It's a very useful intermediary step, because otherwise, who's perceiving? See, what the Buddha's teaching doesn't answer then is who's perceiving that. If there's no self, who is perceiving here? And who? How can I correct my perception if I'm not even here? So the idea of a true self and a Christ is the bridge between these domains of duality, what goes on in the red box, and pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is truth, is true reality. And it's I think a necessary step in the process. So because it's perfectly one, it's ultimately going to bring your mind into the state of pure formless awareness. So it's not in contradiction to pure formless awareness of perfect love at all, because underlying it is the concept of perfect oneness. So it'll take you back there. But accepting Christ or the one self as your identity then is part of this awakening you from your false self-concept based on the belief in separation, which is the ego, into the pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is the phrase we use to replace the word God in our translated versions of the lessons in the text. So, any questions on any of that?
No, apart from what a game it is, isn't it? When you do believe in separation, and it's all to do with that self-concept. I would never have thought it was about self-concept, but it is.
The whole world. This is what we've been trained to see. The entire world, the entire universe is about your self-concept. And the conflict inherent in it is which self are you going to be? Are you going to be the higher self or the lower self? And that choice determines your so-called reality and your experience here. Because that was the choice, that the choice to be a false self is what gave birth to this entire illusion. So everything's about the self-concept. Always remember that. So what's my self-concept here? Thoughts are kicking off, you're feeling thoughts, thinking thoughts, feeling emotions. What's the self-concept behind it? This is what the course is training us. See, okay, there's a false, if I can see that self-concept is not true, then I have the way to let it go, because I realize it's untrue. I can drop the thoughts and the emotions, and in the process, I undo the self-concept, because it's just made up of those false thoughts and emotions. And that's what this process of forgiveness or letting go is all about. You're always letting go. In true letting go or forgiveness, you're always letting go of your self-concept, your false self-concept, and then allowing the true one to arise, because that's all there is. There's only two alternatives. So if you let go of the false one, the true one must start coming and arising in your awareness. So it's a cutting away of that which is false that covers over the truth. Once that's removed, the truth reveals itself. You don't have to try and become that truth. You don't have to make that up. You don't have to do anything. It's just there. You just have to let go of that which covered it over, which makes it very simple and very doable. Whereas a lot of teachings say, well, you've got to go create yourself. And I think you've experienced that. You were trying years ago when you did the whole Susie, you were the writer and the speaker. And you were trying to create that self. a self-created identity, a new version of Susie, but it was false, because it wasn't coming from the spirit, that the pure formless awareness of perfect love, because you hadn't accessed that, which is why it didn't feel right. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Hmm.
I didn't
Now
even understand. I
the
didn't even
chance to do
understand.
it right.
Yeah. Happiness coach before seemed like, you just put a smile on your face to the happiness coach, but it was so much deeper than that, which I didn't really even think about. I hadn't even give it a thought, to be fair.
Yeah. So, you had to go go into the course and do all this work and really go and look at your stuff, to then be authentic. Then you've let go of the ego at a deeper level. It's not just the happiness coach, a veneer of positivity, like thin icing on a rotten cake. It's like, no, actually you baked the cake correctly. The cake is baked with the right ingredients, and it's fresh and it's clean and it's healthy. And then the icing on the top of it is not a veneer. It's not covering it over. It's just an enhancement. So yeah, it's all perfect. I mean, you see your journey is all perfect in its imperfection. Nothing was wasted. It was all part of learning who you are and who you're not. Okay, so we take a look then at today's lesson. So the lesson is, I am one self. I want to read that in the original and the alternative.
I am one self, united with my creator. I am one self, united with my source.
Okay, so let's go into in case we want to make any changes. Where are we? Lesson 95. Okay, so if you want to read the first original and then the alternative.
Today's idea accurately describes you as God created you. Today's idea accurately describes me as pure, formless awareness of perfect love extends me. You are one within yourself and one with Him. I am one with myself and one with it. Yours is the unity of all creation. The unity of all being is mine. Your perfect unity makes change in you impossible. My perfect unity makes change in me impossible. You do not accept this and you fail to realize it must be so only because you believe that you have changed yourself already. I do not accept this and I fail to realize it must be so only because I believe that I have changed myself already.
How does it work when you say it in the first person?
It's a lot better as the first person.
That's why I'm doing it. I'm translating it directly first person. So it becomes it's an affirmation. The whole lesson's an affirmation speaking to yourself, rather than Yeshua teaching you in the third person. It's I am. A lot of the lessons are. He always puts the statements as I am. But why not do the whole lesson? So what's he saying there?
He's letting you know that pure formless awareness has always been here, yet you believe it's not been there. You believe you've changed everything, but it's not. You're remembering who you are because it's always been here. But you're not going to agree with that because for some reason you're going to think something's changed, or it's that whole self-concept. You can see it, can't you?
So in truth, we're perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect unity makes changing me impossible. Nothing's really changed, but I'm under the illusion that I have changed. fail to realize it must be so, and because I believe that I've changed myself already. So I believe that I've totally messed it up. I've destroyed love. Now I'm left with this miserable self-concept, and I've got to try and make the best of it. And the ego doesn't tell you exactly that, because that's too much awareness. But you believe that you are the separate self, that you really have destroyed love and oneness. That's no longer there. That's, this world now of illusion that you've created is real. You really are the individual person with all the problems, and you fail to recognize then the truth about yourself. That's all covered over and buried. You don't know who you are. Isn't it bizarre? Like, how can you not know who you are? Surely who you are is absolutely the fundamental thing you have to know. And yet, this is the crazy illusion that we live in. People don't know who they are. We have no idea who we are. We think we're people. We think we're individual humans, with our own personal identities and our names and our lives and our stories and our relationships and our problems, and on it goes. We really believe that's true, and that's not who we are. It's totally false. So you look at a moment in a meditation this morning, just before the session, and it's like just looking at all these characters. I'm with my family, and just like these characters in this dream, and none of them are really real. I really got that sense of, it's all illusory. And the characters come and they go, and they have their dramas, and then they get old and they die, and none of it's true. The whole thing's just a complete made up fantasy and illusion. Yeah, you still got to sort of operate in it, but there's an awareness that transcends it. It's like, no, this just isn't true at all. None of it's true. So why am I judging any of it then, if none of it's true? See, that's a simple logic. Why am I reacting favorably or adversely to any of it if none of it's true? It's all just a made-up fantasy. These characters don't even really exist. Neither do I really exist. It's just pure formless awareness of perfect love that underlies all of it. That's the only truth. So simple, but it's a deconstruction of the entire world that you know. Which is why this course is not for the faint-hearted, because it's like, well, everything's got to go. Your entire world of being human, your human life, the people, places, events, circumstances that characterize your life, that populate your dream, all of that's got to go, because none of it's true. And the ego gets very scared at that. Oh, no. Rather retreat into the seeming security, the safety of your separate self. Or you'll be safe there, Susie. I'll look after you. But you're not safe. Because look at the pain and the suffering and the drama that's caused you. So it's the only way. Embrace the one self, or live a very limited, fairly miserable existence in the separate self. You suffer and you die, and then, well, there's no escape. You do it again, and you'll do it again and again and again, over and over and over. We've done that. Born, go through a lifetime of drama, pain, suffering, sickness, death, die again, come back again, do it all over again. Around and around we go. And something in you just says, I'm tired of that. I don't want that anymore. I don't want to do endless cycles of this red stuff going around and around in a dream world, the cycle of birth and death. They call it in the Eastern teachings. Around and around, not learning anything, just doing the same thing over and over in different lifetimes. It's the same story over and over, repeated. Whatever the character in the story is, whatever the time it is, whatever the other characters in it, doesn't really matter. It's the same story. It's really just an avoidance of this pure formless awareness of perfect love or source that lies in the center, and you've just skirted around it for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Okay, any questions about that? Otherwise, we'll carry on with the lesson. Number 2.
You see yourself as a ridiculous parody on God's creation, weak, vicious, ugly, and sinful, miserable, and beset with pain. I see myself as a ridiculous, is it parody? Parody on perfect love's extension.
Yeah, a parody is like a mockery.
Parody
means mockery. It's a mockery.
It's paranormal, isn't it? Thinking you parrot. No, it's okay. I see myself as a ridiculous.
Yeah, all parody is also. But it means a mockery. I think parody. A cheesy parody of a classic Western feeble or ridiculous imitation. So that's what a parody means.
I think ridiculous sounds good to me because it's a ridiculous idea that you hold of yourself. Nobody else has got it. But parody, I think it's because of the way I was pronouncing it, parody.
Humorous or mocking imitation of something. So he's used the word a ridiculous parody. It is ridiculous. A ridiculous parody on, maybe that should be of. Parody of something. I think maybe a ridiculous parody of perfect love's extension. And that's what we've created instead of accepting our true self. We've created a ridiculous parody, a mockery, an imitation of what we really are, which is.
But it all stems from a belief, doesn't it? I see myself as a ridiculous belief of perfect love's extension as weak, vicious, ugly, and sinful.
Yeah.
Miserable and tormented by pain.
That's the only alternative. If you look at you look at this diagram, where it leaves you, you go down the ladder of separation, you end up believing that you really are an individual human being living in this pretty unfair, cruel world, a helpless innovator little life. So you don't feel particularly powerful, strong, lots of limitation, lack, loneliness, suffering before you die. If you believe in the thought system of separation, that's where it puts you. That's the bottom of the barrel, the victim of a cruel, unfair world, which you seem to be powerless over because you're just little me. It's a little self stuck in a body, and you seem to have very little power to change it or affect it. So it's the lowest self-concept that the ego can bring you to. And it's a natural consequence of this idea of separation. Believing in the idea of separation will lead you to being a victim of the world. You have to see the connection between them. Because then you see, well, it's all my responsibility. No one's done this to me. I've done it to myself. By going down this ladder of separation, by believing in all these false ideas and the false story the ego spun me, I've now identified myself as a victim of the world, and therefore I'm living in a very unhappy, lacking, limited, lonely reality and suffering, and eventually dying. Okay, but I've done it to myself. So therefore I can undo it. You see, if I really am the victim, then the ego is telling you, well, there's no hope. You just are the victim of the world. You can't change it. You're doomed to live this, really miserable life, as he's pointing out here. A weak, vicious, ugly, sinful, miserable, and painful existence, and then you die eventually. And that's what the ego holds out for us. Well, when he states it like this, you go, who in their right mind could ever believe this? Who would want this? Well, exactly. Who would in their right mind? The only way we can continue to believe in the ego's self is if we don't know that this is what it's doing. It only exists in confusion and unawareness. But as soon as we shine the light of true awareness on the dream and we see this is how it works and this is what the ego's done, it becomes self-evident that this is not what you want, that there's no hope in this thought system. And so then you discard it, you let it go as the illusion it is. And that's what the Holy Spirit's trying to get us to do. The blue arrows are the reinterpretation, the letting go of the dream as it shows up, to bring you back into the knowledge because this is knowledge of God, love, oneness, pure formless awareness. Okay, we'll carry on.
Just the alternative, yeah.
Where are we?
Number 2, such is your version of yourself, a self divided into many wearing parts separate from God and tenuously held together by its erratic and capricious maker.
Capricious, yeah.
What was that?
Capricious nature.
What was that?
It's erratic and capricious nature.
Capricious.
Yeah.
I nearly said Capricorn maker, but then I thought, no, make sure you read it properly.
Capricious means it's not consistent. It's very
Right. Sporadic.
Well, let's see. Yeah, just kind of random, whimsical. Capricious is given to sudden and unaccountable changes of mood or behavior, changing according to no discernible rules, unpredictable. Yeah, so it's chaotic. Capricious, it's chaotic. Suddenly the ego can just do its thing, and it's just totally irascible. I mean, I look at my dad's got dementia now, and it's just sudden, just suddenly have a go. They'll just say something randomly. There's no reason. Oh, you need to do your washing up and you need to put my chair back. Just, there's no particular reason for it. It's just like random, unaccountable change of mood or behavior. And that's the ego for you. It's erratic, it's capricious. There's no predictable. Well, you can predict that it's going to be unpredictable. You can predict that fear and guilt and sin are going to be part of it, but at any point it can do anything. There's no logic to it, which is why I think that this is why sometimes you say, but I'm just doing my head in it. I'm just really struggling with this because it's just like this erratic, crazy thought system trying to take charge of your mind and get you to think and speak and act. It wants to manifest itself into the world in crazy ways that just don't make any sense. No discernible rules. Yeshua calls the ego's laws the laws of chaos. There's no, because they seem to make sense, but when you really look at them, they don't. They're just laws of chaos, and they create this erratic, capricious behavior that makes no sense at all. So he's just giving it to us straight as he does, and saying this is what your ego is. Let me tell you straight what it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and tell you it's okay to hold on to it any longer, because it's really not. This is what you're believing in. Is this what you really want? And when he points it out in such graphic detail, so explicitly, it's obvious that it's not what you want. He's getting us to help us to make the decision. It's like, no, I'm ready to let this all go. This doesn't make any sense at all. I'm not going to cling to a separate identity any longer, because this is what it involves. The price is way too high.
Okay. So the alternative is, such is my version of myself as self-divided into, it's a self-divided into many wearing parts.
Warring parts. So that's
warring parts.
Maybe we could change that to conflicting. Might be.
Yeah.
Conflicting.
Divided into many conflicting parts, separate from pure formless awareness of perfect love. And here's another one. Tenuously,
yeah.
Tenuously held together by its erratic.
Tenuously means it's very fragile. It's like imagine like just tenuous ropes holding a whole structure together, and you snap one rope and the whole thing falls apart. So, or a house of cards. You put these cards and it's all stacked on top, and you just touch one and the whole thing's gonna fall apart. So he's using these analogies to try and get us to like, okay, this is very unstable, it's very tenuous, it's conflicting. Is this really the self you want?
And then I read number 3 to myself, bless you. It does not hear your prayers, for it is deaf. It does not hear my prayers, for it is deaf. It does not see the oneness in you, for it is blind. Wow. It does not perceive the oneness in me, for it is blind. It does not understand you are the Son of God, for it is senseless and understands nothing. It does not understand the extension of perfect love, for it is senseless and understands nothing.
Yeah. So he's so explicit, Yeshua. I mean, he's just giving it to us absolutely straight. The language is unequivocal, unambiguous, very direct, very to the point, very straightforward. How can you interpret it in any other way? He's not leaving any room for interpretation, is he? He's just saying this is how it is. So you believe it or not. Someone who wants to believe in the ego is going to go, I don't believe this. But if you will really look and you be honest about the ego, then you will come to the same conclusion as he has. Say, well, yeah, I get it. I can see that this actually is true. It's a painful truth, perhaps, because the self that you made is just ridiculous. It's parody. It's nothing. It's so dysfunctional. You can't believe it anymore. And there can be a sense of, oh, well, I'm losing something of value. Yeah, ego tells you that, but when you look at it correctly, you go, this is just crazy. It's a ridiculous parody. This is not something I want anywhere in my mind at all. And then you make the decision to let it all go. So no, I don't want any of this anymore. So that means the self goes, the separate self goes, and the world it made goes with it. The entire thing is undone. And that's what he's holding out for us. He's saying, well, this is what I offer you. Do you want it or not? Okay, so what is he what's he saying here in summary of paragraph 2?
What a ridiculous parody we follow instead of perfect love. It doesn't see, it doesn't hear you, it's senseless, it's nothing. Yet we believe it as if it's, well, we pray to it, don't we? Yeah. And we don't realize the conflict we're causing for ourselves by believing this ridiculous. Oh, it causes so much pain and suffering, doesn't it?
Ridiculous parody. That's creation.
That's it, yeah.
So he stated the case really well, and he's trying to get us to see exactly what the ego is. So we just cannot choose it anymore. There's no way, once you know this, that you can consciously choose it. It can only try and make you unconscious, so you're not aware of this teaching anymore, and then you forget, and then you can choose it. But if you understand what it is, and that behind every grievance and every expectation you have, and every scrap of pain and suffering that you've ever experienced, is this insane, ridiculous parody of your true self, then you're getting to the nub of the problem. You're understanding, I only have one problem, and that's a false self-concept. That's my only problem in life. I think I have many problems, but they are all the product of that one false idea. That's my only problem, is I still believe in a separate self, which understands nothing, is senseless, weak, vicious, ugly, sinful, miserable, tormented by pain, tenuously held together, erratic and capricious. I mean, who in their right mind would want that when he states the case like this? Who could choose that consciously? You couldn't. So that's his methodology. He's training us to just see it for what it is, telling it like it is, not sugarcoating it, and then the decision becomes obvious. Okay, well, you've got to let that go. Okay. Happy with number 2? Moving swiftly on to number 3.
Should we just go for the alternative, or do you want both of them?
Yeah, do the alternative. There's just one thing that's going to change. Your creator becomes your source.
I will attempt today to be aware only of what can truly hear and see, and what makes perfect sense. I will again direct my efforts in today's exercises towards reaching my one self, which is united with its source. In patience and in hope, I try again today.
Mm. I like, it's very encouraging, isn't it? It's like a coach. He's like in our corner, he's saying, okay, so I know it's difficult and I know you don't always feel like you're getting it, but just try again, try again in patience and in hope. He's encouraging us, giving us a little pep talk, which is what a good coach does. He understands it's not just about the teaching, it's about encouraging us to apply it. So it's it's a fantastic mind training course, and you've got this master, the greatest master ever who's lived, and he's coaching you. That's amazing. And it's free. You can download this free if you want. Get it available free. I mean, it's extraordinary. The grace that we now have. You can get direct instruction from the greatest spiritual master of all time, freely available online. Like, why isn't everyone just diving in there and going, wow, I want to find amazing? But we don't, because we blocked. Not everyone's open to it. And this level of truth, for a lot of people, it's someone Christine tried to bring on board it to do a free trial in Cape Town. I was like, no, the course is too full on for me. Okay, so you want to be half on then, do you? Is that how you want to live your life? Half on. I kind of get it, but I'm not really getting it. I mean, it's crazy when people, but that's the avoidance of the truth, because they don't really want to look. You're in a
Maybe
session like this.
that's how you've got to. Maybe that's how you got to advertise it, Jono. Are you a half cup kind of person or full cup?
Yeah,
that'd be intriguing to know what people think, because people then know what they're coming in for. Well, you like to think, wouldn't you?
Well, that's why I offer a free trial. It's like, okay, well, in the free trial, the 3 weeks will sort the wheat from the chaff. It'll be like, well, if you're half baked and you don't really want to do it, you're not gonna continue, are you? For 3 weeks, you're like, that's not for me, and then you drop off, and that's fine. So I don't want to take people's money if they're not committed and they're really doing it. So it's not for everyone. That's why we just got a small group. But there will be people. I think there's a lot more people out there who could benefit and could really, who want to take this deeper. So I'm actually really willing to do this work and really look and come into an environment. There's nowhere to hide. I mean, you're with me, there's nowhere to hide, is there? It's like, okay, we're going to do this. And not everyone wants that. Okay, so nice. Just a quick summary of number 3. What's he saying there? Very simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's that words like patience and hope. People don't seem to have that nowadays. It's like you don't see it, do you? But he is being very honest with you here, like you said. He wants you to see the truth, and he's delicately putting it in so it embeds in the right place, being so kind and gentle with you to prod you to the truth. Yeah, because
it's a stick and the carrot, isn't it? I mean, he's giving us the stick. He's like, okay, this is what the ego is. Let's tell it straight. We're not going to sugarcoat this. It's a disaster. It's awful. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Don't try and go, oh, well, there's some value to the ego, because then you keep it and you have to keep all of it. So he gives us the stick treatment, and then immediately he goes to the carrot. And he number 3, he says, okay, well, we'll attempt today. I know that, you have the ego's still there. It's challenging you, but let's try again. Let's be patient. Let's be disciplined. Let's direct our efforts in patience, and we hope I try again. Okay, I can do this. He's not saying I have to get it all right perfectly. He's just saying try again. And so there's a reason why there's this methodology of like encouraging us. And he'll say, I try. I mean, ultimately, you do or you do not. Yoda in Star Wars said it beautifully. Luke Skywalker was, well, I'll try to. I think he was trying to lift his fighter, his craft out of a swamp. He was trying to lift it with his mind. So, oh, well, I'll try. And Yoda just says, there's no try, do or do not. You know?
Mm.
That is ultimately the truth. But while we're learning, it's like, well, okay, you know, just try again, give it a go. You wouldn't say to a little kid, you know, do or do not. It's like, you know, get it right or don't. It's like, no, you just try again, persevere, you know, you'll get it right. So it's that kind of nurturing, coaching, really encouraging style, which is encouraging us to keep going. So he's actually quite gentle, although he gives us the right, you know, this is how the ego is. Then he's got this gentle voice. It's like, okay, well, he's encouraging us. I know it's not that easy for you, so I'm going to encourage you to carry on and do this. Okay, so number 4.
The use of the first 5 minutes of every waking hour for practicing the idea for the day has special advantages at the stage of learning in which I am at present. I've just gone for the alternative, Johnny.
Yeah, it's fine because there's not much to translate.
Yeah, it is. It is difficult at this point not to allow my mind to wander if it undertakes extended practice. I've surely realised this by now. I have experienced the extent of my lack of mental discipline and consequent need for mind training. It is necessary that I be aware of this, for it is indeed a hindrance to my spiritual progress.
And so, you know, you've seen this, haven't you? Your
Oh,
mind is
yeah.
all over the shop. Lack of mental discipline, mind's wandering, doesn't want you to sit quietly and meditate. And so he's saying, okay, this is, you know, this is where you're at the moment. You are the Son of God, you are the one self, but you have, you know, you have these perceptual problems that interfere. But so it's necessary that you be aware of them so that you can overcome them. These are what hinder your advance, your spiritual progress. And so he's talking about, you know, the breath breaks, the shorter practice periods, which is a big part of his training. I'm guessing most people on the course and the program don't do it. Don't do the shorter practice periods very often. He's saying every hour, every hour, 5 minutes. You know, he says that for a reason. 5 minutes every hour.
Yeah. When I first used to do them, I used to read, and I used to be always looking at it and reading it. Then I started doing the breath breaks, but now I have to admit, I tend to go for the longer ones, first thing in the morning, maybe sometimes even in the afternoon, and then one before I go to bed. But I kind of stick with because I've still got the crux about love sometimes. I'm going into I am love most of the day now. So, but I use the longer one in the morning. I think 15-20 minutes is a really good average kind of size for meditation. I don't think, you know, but yeah, I tend to be doing that. And some mornings, depending what I'm doing, I may listen to it again and again before I even get out of bed, because I just want it to be, you know.
Yeah, so he's saying the longer ones are important because they set you up for the day and they end the day on a good note. But then in between, if you've got hours of the day, you want to top yourself up. You know, the shorter practice periods are about interrupting the default pattern of the ego.
Yeah.
So you're just interrupting it, comes in, you interrupt it, and that's the way that you're going to undo it. Because otherwise, what can happen is you know, the ego can come in those intervals between the longer ones and has a chance to get some traction and starts working in your thoughts and emotions and can try and hijack you. Whereas if you're doing it every hour, you know, you're just not giving it any room, are you? Every hour you're correcting again. So you go, think of it as you know, in flying terms. Apparently, a lot of the time the airplane's off course, so it goes off course by a degree and then it corrects. You know, and it's just doing that all the time. Off course, correct. Off course, correct. So you're just doing these little course corrections. So you can't ever go very wildly off course if you're doing hourly practice, because I feel like I'm losing it. Okay, bring it back with one of my breath breaks. and then I'm on course again, and then, you know, just to make sure I stay on course, I do another one. And if I feel like I've got a wobble, then I take the 5 minutes and I do it. And he's doing this. He's suggesting we do this because he knows the extent of the ego in our minds. He knows it's going to take a lot of undoing because it's such a default program. So hourly, just spend 5 minutes doing the undoing. Really recommend it. So set an alarm or something on your phone. There's apps you can download. There's an ACIM app. I've sent it out before. Maybe I'll send it out again. For like £5, you can download, and it's got the lessons in it. And then you set it, and you can say every hour, every 2 hours, you set the frequency, and then it pops it up, and you do it. Now, obviously, something like if we're in a session, then I mean you're doing practice for 2-3 hours at a time, so you wouldn't do it then. But in between times, you do it, and even if it's just a minute, if you can't make 5 minutes, even if it's just a minute, to just bring in the idea of the lesson. And then at the end of it, if you add in the I am love. So you do the lesson, you breathe in. So all it needs to do is take, it's one long breath. You go, I am one self, united with my source. And you feel that, you feel into that. And then say, and I am perfect love. And you exhale. Have a sense of releasing anything that's not that. Blow it all out. Spend a few moments just connecting with the energy. And then you're done. That takes 30 seconds, a minute maybe. But you can do it just to, so I've given you instructions in your Telegram message to do it, and in the email, to do it in under a minute. If you don't have time to listen to one of the breath breaks, there's usually a 3-minute breath break, something like that. But if they're the instructions, close your eyes, that you can do that in under a minute. And I've said integrate your I am statement. I am love, the end of it. So you say, I am one self, united with my source, at one with every aspect of extension, limitless in power and peace. You feel into that. That's one breath. You exhale. Let it all go. And then at the bottom of the exhale, when you empty, you just say, I am love, or I am perfect love, whatever your essence statement was. You feel into it. And so you're topping up your tank of that frequency. What you went into in the longer one, you're just topping it up in that minute. Basically, you look at the fire analogy, you're stoking the fire. You're saying, I'm just going to stoke it, I'm going to feed it. Every hour, I'm going to feed it some more so the fire keeps burning, so it doesn't go out. So yeah, I'd encourage you to try and do as much of that as possible, because you're managing then your mental and emotional state. You're staying in that inspired state, and the rest of the time, then that inspired state is going to guide you. Your thoughts, words, and actions unfold from that. And then you don't forget. Okay, so frequent, do you want to read number 5? Again, in the alternative.
Frequent but shorter practice periods have other advantages for you at this time. Frequent but shorter practice periods have other advantages for me at this time.
Just read it in the alternative, yeah.
In addition to recognizing my difficulties with sustained attention, I've also noticed that unless I am reminded of my purpose frequently, I tend to forget about it for long periods of time. I often fail to remember the short applications of the idea for the day, and I have not yet formed the habit of using the idea as an automatic response to temptation.
Okay.
The more you practice it, though, it does seem like it does fall into place. But like you said, it is practicing it. It's that constant practice, because it's been able to do what it's wanted to do for so long. It had no discipline or anything. It just does its own thing.
So this discipline, this practice is necessary at this stage, he's saying. Ultimately, in pure formless awareness, if you're enlightened, you don't need it. But at this stage, we need it because we've got all the ego still going on and we have to undo it. So then we don't forget our purpose. We keep coming back. We come back on track. And so the spirit is now allowing it to guide us. Every time you check in, it's like checking in with your guide. Okay, am I on track? Yes. And then you carry on and you check in frequently. If you're on a journey, think about it on a hike. You're not quite sure, it's a new hike. You don't know the way. You're going to check in frequently, aren't you? You're going to go, okay, pause. Okay, where are we going? Check at the map. Okay, are we going right? You're going to do that frequently to make sure you're on course. So, same idea. Okay, so structure. So what's he saying in, to summarize this, in number 5 is that, these frequent practice periods are necessary to give us some discipline, to train our mind to be able to use the idea as an automatic response to temptation, not to forget our purpose, to learn to be much more consistent about applying the idea to whatever problems are arising. And the hourly practice is training us to be much more consistent. Okay, so number 6.
Structure then is necessary for me at this time. Plan to include frequent reminders of my goal and regular attempts to reach it. Regularity in terms of time is not the ideal requirement for the most beneficial form of practice in awakening. However, it is advantageous for those whose motivation is inconsistent and who remain heavily defended against learning.
Okay, so summary of that. What's he saying there?
There is a constant reminder, especially like you said at the beginning, and it is early for practicing. You have to take advantage of it. It is true. And I think sometimes this against the learning, you don't even realize you've got it until you're in it. And because that's only when you hit the resistance, but then you don't even realize the resistance is something is defending against your learning, because you say you're open, but it's not happening that way.
Frequent reminders of my goal, regular attempts to reach it. So regularity, consistency, like any training program, if you're consistent and you're disciplined in training in anything, any skill, any talent you want to cultivate, it requires the structure and the discipline to really improve. So he's saying, well, do it, put the structure and the discipline in place, because you have all these blocks to the learning. Your motivation is inconsistent. You remain heavily defended against learning. Maybe we could say you remain heavily resistant. Defended against means resistant to. Resistant to learning. And so every time you practice, you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to undo that resistance. I'm going to be willing. Every time you say, I'm willing to practice, that's a win in itself. You've overcome the ego's resistance just by being willing to do it. And then in the actual doing of it, you reinforce the learning. So part of the practice. I don't think
until you do stuff like this, you realize that you do have resistance. I mean, I heard Eckhart Tolle before I'd done the course that he spoke about, you need to understand that you'll all have resistance, because I didn't even understand what it was, to be fair. But then the more I've been doing this, there is obviously, and the only time I notice that it's resistance is obviously I tense up or something, but it's not easy to understand that you all have resistance, because there are a lot of people that are willing to do stuff, but not realizing that that's there. Sometimes you don't even know what you're thinking or saying or whatever. So you've got to be really mindful of these things that trip you up on your own learning.
Yeah, so again, he's just coaching us, and he's giving us a little bit of, okay, so this is where we're at, this is the methodology, this is which is helpful, because then you start understanding what he's trying to do. If you understand it and there's a logic to it, and there's a reason for it, then you're much more likely to do it. Okay, I see why it makes sense for me to do it, every hour. Okay, well, maybe I should do that. He doesn't recommend you do it for no reason. He's put it in there because he thinks it's going to be helpful to you, and that it's an important part of the mind training of this course. Okay, so a bit of structure, a bit of discipline, and I think that's quite important. There's a sort of version of, maybe you'd be familiar with some so-called spiritual people who are very undisciplined. There's no structure, there's no discipline. It's just like, well, whatever goes, and because they think that's spiritual, but it's usually just the ego in charge. There's no discipline, so the ego then just runs amok and says that, oh, it's all very spiritual, really, to do whatever I want whenever I want, and pander to the ego's desires and capricious nature. Whereas this, like, okay, there's a discipline, there's a structure, and I follow that in a disciplined, systematic, structured way. And ultimately, that's going to free my mind from the need for this. In pure formless awareness, perfect love, I don't need discipline and structure. But where I am now, this is useful. So it's part of the undoing of the ego. Okay, so let's go to number 7.
Therefore, I will keep to the 5 minutes and hour practice periods for a while and omit as few as possible. Using the first 5 minutes of the hour will be particularly helpful for me, since it imposes firmer structure. However, I will not use my lapses from this schedule as an excuse not to return to it again as soon as I can. I may well be tempted to regard the day as lost because I have already failed to do what is required. However, I merely recognise this as what it is: a refusal to let my mistake be corrected and an unwillingness to try again.
Okay, so any thoughts on that? What's he saying there?
Great clear instruction to follow it and not let anything get you down. Because it's very easy to think I've made a mistake because I've not done it, I'll stuff it. That's how we all get sometimes. But as soon as you get on it, it's okay.
Yeah, well summarized. Yeah. So just climb back. You've fallen off the horse, climb back on. Don't beat yourself up. Don't go, oh, well, I've messed it all up, so therefore I'm not going to do anything. Just go, okay, well, now I've remembered, I'll do a practice period. So if you don't do it every hour, but you do it every second hour, every third hour, well, you've still done probably half a dozen practice periods in the day, if you do it every couple of hours. So it's okay. So he's saying do your best, and just try and stick to the schedule as much as you can. And actually, in the research, they've shown that people who take breaks, you break every hour for 5 minutes, you're more effective. You can't always go, always on. You need these little breaks to refresh. So if you're working, you build it into your work schedule. Okay, it's time, I've done an hour, take a 5-minute break, do it as a breath break. If you need to go to the toilet, you can do it on the toilet. You can do it anyway, and you do it to refresh yourself, and then you carry on. So Holy Spirit, number 8. To that.
Just the alternative?
Yeah, I think so. Just the Holy Spirit with the remembrance of perfect love. That's the first translation. The rest is fairly the same. So
The remembrance of perfect love is not delayed in its teaching by my mistakes. It can be held back only by my unwillingness to let them go. Therefore, I am determined, particularly for the next week or so, to let go of judging myself for my lapses in diligence and my failures to follow the instructions for practicing the day's idea. This tolerance for weakness will enable me to overlook it rather than give it the power to delay my learning. If I give it power to do this, I'm regarding it as strength and confusing strength and weakness.
okay. So
It's again reminding you, isn't it, that there's the remembrance of perfect love is always with you. It's always with you, and like you said, it's not to look at these as mistakes to get on it. Don't be held back by anything that's going off, and just be willing to just do the practice without judging yourself, obviously, and thinking you're a failure. I think it's a great point there about regarding it as strength and confusing it. We do confuse ourselves. I believe we all do it. But it's how long you stay in that confusion before you realise that I've not actually let go. Because we think we've let go, but we've not. And that's why it's that constant reminder to keep letting go.
Yeah. I'm judging myself. Well, that's a key one. Self-blame is an ego defense, much as a defense of blaming others. So part of our challenge, I messed it up again. I'm never going to get this right. So, okay, throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just not going to do it. Classic ego defense against, doing what you can do. So saying tolerance for weakness will enable me to overlook it, rather than giving it the power to delay. So quite intelligent, saying, don't resist it, judge yourself for it, because that's just going to make the error real. Well, it's okay, it's no big deal. I missed the practice, so whatever. I'll pick it up now. So you don't give it any real power in your mind. And it lightens it up a bit, because those could become very laborious, and it's just, oh God, another breath. That's not the point. The whole point is it's there to inspire you. It's there to bring joy to you. Every 5 minutes, every hour, you have 5 minutes of connection, inspiration, joy, peace coming in. It should be light-hearted, and something that you look forward to. Oh, great, breath break, great. I've got 5 minutes to just really connect in, feel that inner peace, joy, strength, the inner fire burning. Lovely. Why would I avoid that? And then I can go back to the business of the world after 5 minutes. Okay, so again, really helpful. He's just doing he does this from time to time, a little bit of coaching in this lesson as part of it. Saying, okay, here's where we're at. This is how the methodology is working for you. Okay, number 9, when I failed to comply with the requirements of this course.
When I fail to comply with the requirements of this course, I've merely made a mistake. This calls for correction and for nothing else. To allow a mistake to continue is to make additional mistakes based on the first and reinforcing it. It is this process that I must let go of, for it is just another way in which I defend illusions against the truth.
Okay, so what's he saying there?
Well, he's definitely letting you know that you've not failed, you to get on and make that correction. It's important that you do that instead of, because you end up backtracking, well, not even backtracking. You're defending illusions when really there's truth right in front of you. It's all that awareness, it's all that being alert to it all, isn't it? It is difficult at the beginning, isn't it? It is a difficult thing to keep up with because you're training yourself to do something that you never did before. But once you get in there, it does get easier.
Yeah, good. It's a good methodology for handling any kind of mistake. You go, okay, it's a mistake. It calls for correction. So I'll correct the mistake. I'm not going to, keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I'll correct it, but there's no guilt. I'm not beating myself up. Oh, you made a mistake again, and you're useless, and whatever. The ego's story is, interpretation of it is. So you just, okay, mistake, but immediate correction, and then the mistake doesn't have a chance to really lodge. You don't make the error real. Whereas the ego is always trying to make the error real and permanent, and then it becomes a sin. You see, a mistake made permanent and real is a sin. So, whereas, if we allow a mistake to continue, then we're making an additional mistake. The second mistake after mistake is to make the mistake real in our perception, judge ourselves for it, and continue. That's a secondary mistake, which then reinforces the first one. And we just let go of it, and it's being very light. It's like, oh well, it's okay, just a little mistake. What's the big deal? I mean, how simple is this teaching? Okay, you made a little mistake. Oops, a little oops. You decided to be a separate self. Thought that was a good idea. The universe manifested. Now you think you're human. Ooh, okay, but it's a little mistake, really. You just took a wrong road, a little mistake. It's not really a big deal. Just correct it. That's all he's saying in this teaching. But for the ego, that's a huge deal. Oh my God, that's my whole life. That's my existence. That's everything I believe in, is now being undone. The spirit's just, well, it was never real anyway. So what are you worried about? You're not losing anything that's reality. So don't defend against the truth. Just let it go as and when the mistakes arise. Okay, so let all these errors go.
I let all these errors go by recognizing them for what they are. They are attempts to keep me unaware of my one self, united with my source, at one with every aspect of extension and limitless in power and peace. This is the truth, and nothing else is true. Today, I affirm this truth again and try to reach the place in me in which there is no doubt that only this is true.
Only the truth is true. And just let the errors go. Why do we dwell on errors so much? Why can't we just say, okay, well, just a little mistake, no big deal. Move on. Make such a big deal of it. We beat ourselves up. Get stuck in the error and could just let it go. So when you put it this way, I mean, letting go is the only thing that makes any sense. Why do we live in any other way? Why don't we just let mistakes go and move on? But we don't get taught this.
No.
Parents don't teach it to us generally unless they were pretty enlightened. School doesn't teach it to you. Actually, the world teaches you the opposite. The world teaches you to take it seriously. Oh, you've made a mistake. That's serious. You've done something wrong. Judge yourself for it, beat yourself up. Or judge and project that onto someone else because you don't want to take the blame, so blame someone else. Either which reinforces the guilt and the sin. But letting it go just drops it. You're like, well, the error, I acknowledge the mistake temporarily, but then I let it go, it's no longer there. So I've let it go into the nothingness that it always was, and I've freed my mind in that process. What he's saying here is just, let it go. Let all these errors go, recognizing them just as errors, and that cover over the truth, nothing more. All error is just designed to cover over the truth. It's its only purpose. You recognize that's its only purpose and you want the truth, then let the error go. So again, he says, practice, try again, try to reach the place in me in which there is no doubt that only this is true, only the truth is true. Okay, so I think that brings us to the practice. Would you like to do a meditation?
Yeah.
On this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just making yourself comfortable. Put yourself on mute if you like, sitting your feet shoulder width apart, back straight, cup your hands in your lap, or you can have your hands palms facing upwards on either thigh. And start off with a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in through the nose, you're noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle to lock the energy in. Draw the energy up your spine into your heart center. Put one hand in your heart to connect with your heart space. And draw energy all the way up into the crown of your head. Pausing at the top of the inhale, so it's a maximal inhale breath. So just scan your mind. Noticing any thoughts going on there, any emotions related to them, any body sensations related to thoughts and emotions. And whatever's going on, just assure yourself that I am one self. You might want to state this out loud as an affirmation. I am one self, united with my source. At one with every aspect of extension. And limitless in power and peace. And exhale on the truth of that. Exhale all that resistance, whatever those thoughts and emotions were, just blow them away. They're just mistakes. Very temporary, very ephemeral. There's no need to dwell on them. You just blow them away. The breeze of your breath into the nothingness they really are. They're going, gone. From the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And you just rest here in this deep peace and stillness. There's nowhere else to go. Nothing else to do. Just sink into this one idea that I am one self. Say to yourself, I am one self. Repeat this several times. And feel the meaning that the words convey. Feel into those words. Say it again. I am one self. Not many selves. Not a separate self. Not a personal self. I am one self. This is your true nature. This is your Christ identity. Which you're feeling now. Just feel into this one self. Say, it's an affirmation after me. I am one self. United and secure in pure formless awareness, joy, and peace. State those words aloud as affirmation of this truth. Breathe in as I speak, and then as you exhale, state the words that I've just said. Repeat them. I am perfect love's extension. And exhale, repeat the words. Inhale, one self, one source, and one with one goal. Exhale, repeat those words. Breathe in again to bring awareness of this oneness to all minds. Exhale, state those words to bring awareness. This oneness to all minds. Breathe in again, so that true being may extend the allness and the unity of perfect love. So breathe in this beingness to every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is in the being that you are. And as you exhale, repeat the words, so that true being may extend the allness and the unity of perfect love. Inhale again, say, I am one self. Complete and healed and whole. Power to lift the veil of darkness from the world. And let the pure formless awareness of perfect love in me come through to teach the world the truth about myself. Really feel into these words, feel the power of them. Breathe in again. Say, I am one self. In perfect harmony with all there is. Exhale, repeat those words. Breathe in again. And all that there ever will be. And exhale as you repeat those words. Breathe in, I am one self, a pure extension of perfect love. And exhale and repeat the words. Inhale, united with everyone in that self. Exhale, repeat the words. Breathe in, united with my source in its awareness. So I'm united in my source with its awareness. Exhale as you repeat the words. Breathe in and say, I feel this one self in me. Feel into it. Feel the power and the presence of this one self. And let it shine away all my illusions and doubts. So exhale and have a sense of this one self just shining away the illusions and the doubts and blowing them all away. The breeze of your breath into the nothingness they are. Inhale, this is my true self. Extension of perfect love itself. Innocent as its source. Love strength within me and forever mine. Breathe in again. I am one self. And I can feel the self within me. Past all illusions. Let go of all illusions. And the one awareness that is the self. The whole truth in me. And just for a couple of minutes, rest in this self, in this truth. Nothing else to do. No words are required now. No techniques. You just allow the experience, the feeling of this one self to be there, to deepen into it. Your mind wanders, just bring it back to the key idea of today. I am one self, united with my source. I am one self, united with my source. And then sink into that awareness. There's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, nothing else to think about. Breathe, relax, be still, and surrender into this awareness. The next couple of minutes of deep silence. Just experience the one self, the true self that you really are. The next 2 minutes of deep silence. If any thoughts come up to disturb deep peace, take you away from yourself, just remind yourself that I am one self, united with my source, at one with every aspect of extension, and limitless in power and peace. And then just blow away these clouds of thoughts. Ego's clouds can't obscure perfect blue sky that is your true mind, your true awareness, pure formless awareness of the perfect love, which is the light of the source shining through that blue sky, enlightening your awareness. This is what your one self offers you, true awareness. So come home, go home today. And in a minute or so of deep silence, just rest in this one self. You are united with your source, at one with every aspect of creation or extension, and limitless in power and peace. And feel that power and that peace, the inner fire, the power and the deep peace that underlies it all. Just experience that. Give yourself permission to let everything else go and just experience that for the next couple of minutes of deep silence. So just coming out of the meditation, on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just take a nice deep breath in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. Scan your mind, notice any thoughts, any emotions going on, anything that's disturbing your peace in any way, and then just let it go, reminding yourself, I am one self, united with my source and one with every aspect of extension and limitless in power and peace. And really feel that. And exhale fully. Notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, and your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling and touching. Maybe there's a subtle flow of air on your skin. Notice that. Breathe in. Notice any smell in your nose. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth. Notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things from this very still, calm, and surrendered state of mind. And when you're ready, on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So just look around in the same calm, still state. And you just notice any object picked randomly. Just look at it for a few moments. Notice this awareness that you accessed in the meditation for the last 23 minutes. Still there, but now just underlying your sense perceptions. Still the same powerful, peaceful awareness. Look at something else. Notice that nothing's really changed. That awareness is the same, identical. And in this way, you teach yourself that you are one self, one awareness, one power, one peace, one love underlies every experience. That's the truth. And the illusion of separation is undone in your perception in that way. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and the first part of the session. So thank you, Susie, for joining. You're welcome to stay. We're going to have a look at our text now. I see Elaine's just joined. So welcome, Elaine.
Hi.
Hi, Elaine.
Oh, hi, Susie.
Yeah, so Susie, do you want to stay with us? Elaine, we just finished the lesson, so we can jump into the text if you want.
Just literally joined you, yes.
We can
just
do some text. Susie, do you want to carry on, or you're going to bow out at the stage?
I'm going to bow out. Thank you so much. And I'll keep you posted anyway.
Yes, yeah, do. It's very interesting to see how that unfolds, and I'll send you a little text with the the amount.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, Susie.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye for now. Okay, so Elaine, shall we dive into some text?
Yeah, yes. Just 2 seconds there. I'm just getting my battery. Oops.
Okay, no problem. All right, just give me a moment then. I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I've sorted are you, Dave, I'm just going on to my Zoom class. I'll not be, right.
Are you doing your Zoom?
Yeah. See you later. Right. Sorry about this. Okay. Ready. The Guiltless World. Introduction. No, not here yet.
Okay, you ready, Elaine?
Yep.
Okay, so this one is a new chapter called The Guiltless World. Introduction. So it's quite short, just 4 paragraphs. So let's dive into it, shall we?
Yes.
I'm going to read the original and then the alternative.
Line by line.
Yeah, there's not going to be much to translate there, looks like. So read the alternative. There's only one
Okay.
translation, farther to source at the end of it.
Right. If you did not feel guilty, you could not attack. For condemnation is the root of attack. It is the judgment of one mind by another as unworthy of love and deserving of punishment. A bit bigger. But herein lies the split. For the mind that judges perceives itself as separate from the mind being judged, believing that by punishing another, it will escape punishment. All this is but the delusional attempt of the mind to deny itself and escape the penalty of denial. It is not an attempt to relinquish denial, but to hold on to it. For it is guilt that has obscured the source to you. It is guilt that has driven you insane.
It's going to change that itself to deny its true identity. Escape the penalty of the denial. So this is the projection of guilt outwards that he's talking about. not an attempt to relinquish denial, but an attempt to reinforce it. So as we project the guilt outwards, we're saying that I'm guilty, aren't I? If I keep giving you something, I must have lots of it to give. If I keep giving you guilt in the form of blame, I must have lots of it to give. So this is the ego's delusional attempt to try and get rid of the guilt by offloading it onto someone else and escape the penalty of denial, which is the punishment that it fears for its imagined sin of separating, of destroying love. So if we look at this again, we have the guilt and the sin underpinning the individual identity of the ego that exists because we think we really have destroyed love in order to create our separate self. So that's the penalty of that denial, then the punishment we fear. And the ego says, oh, this is not good. I want to keep my separate self, but I want to offload the guilt, so I'll project it onto someone else. And that movement we call blame. Whenever you blame someone else, accusation, blame, complaint, or this offloading of the guilt to try and get rid of it. But actually all it does is it reinforces that you have the guilt in your mind and that you have lots of it to give. So it doesn't work. That's what he's saying. It's not an attempt. Did you read number 6? Not an attempt to relinquish denial.
But it's to hold on to it, yeah. For it is guilt that has obscured the source to you, and it is guilt that has driven you insane. Yeah.
So you're not really letting go. It's not an attempt to let go of this denial, but to hold on to it. So whenever we project guilt, we feel guilt, we project it, we are confirming that we are a separate self. So the guilt and the sin underpin the individual identity of the ego. And that's why it's addicted to them. It can't exist without them. That's why anything the ego does is laced with this guilt and the sin and the fear that comes from it, and the attack being the projection of that guilt. It underpins the individual identity. And Yeshua is saying to us, there is no way out of this dilemma. As soon as you believe that you're a separate self, then the guilt and the sin seem to be real. Then the consequence of it, of guilt and sin, also seem to be real. The fear, the attack thoughts, the projection of it, it all comes when you make the one mistake of denying your true identity. So the answer is simple, then. We'll let go of the true identity, let go of the false identity. Let go of that denial. Deny the denial of truth, and you back in truth. And the guilt and the sin and the fear and the attack and all the games the ego plays as a result of this false identity just disappear. They're no longer required if you don't believe in it, in the individual identity. So and we've looked at this many times, but this particular chapter is all about guilt. Guilt is really the foundation then of the ego. It's what maintains and perpetuates the ego in this world. You must look at it to undo it. So in the next few sections, we're going to do that. Really go into what is this guilt thing, and how do we undo it? You just recognize, you see, the undoing of the guilt comes in the recognition that the individual identity that you think is real is not real, that the separation never happened. That's the undoing of the guilt. As soon as you believe it's happened, then the guilt and the sin seem to be justified, and then you're in the thought system of the ego. So the recognition of the unreality of the idea of separation, which underpins the guilt, which is the reason for the guilt, is what's required. And that's what this course is always reminding us of. Guilt that has obscured the source to you, and is guilt that has driven you insane. So the guilt, you keep the guilt in place, then it keeps this block in your awareness. You can't see your source. You can't perceive pure formless awareness of perfect love because the guilt overlays that. And we know what guilt feels like. It's a dark, heavy, it's not a nice feeling. It covers over the lightness of your true being. Okay, so any other thoughts or comments or questions on that?
No, you were very thorough.
All right.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so happy to move on to number 2.
Yeah. Line by line.
Yeah, there's a bit to translate here, so do it line by line.
The acceptance of guilt into the mind of God's Son was the beginning of the separation, as the acceptance of the at-one-ment is its end. The acceptance of guilt into the mind of perfect love's extension was the beginning of the separation, as the acceptance of the at-one-ment is its end.
Well, see what he's saying. Beginning of the separation. When this started, you had the beginning of the separation, and the guilt that underpinned it. That's what made it real. As soon as we felt guilty for this apparent sin of separating from our source, that's what underpinned it. That's what gave it its reality, long-lasting reality, and we still believe that. So the acceptance of that one-ment is its end. Guilt reinforces the separation. At-one-ment says, no, this is all a load of rubbish. None of it's true. So there is nothing to feel guilty for because the separation never happened. That's the at-one-ment idea.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay.
The world you see is the delusional system of those made mad by guilt. The world you see, it's the same. The world you see is delusional system of those made by guilt. Look carefully at this world and you will realize that this is so. Look carefully at this world and you will realize it's the same. For this world is the symbol of punishment, and all the laws that seem to govern it is the laws of death.
Oh, the laws of death. Yeah. So just read it in the alternative until we get to the last one.
All right. Children are born into it through pain and in pain. Through pain and in pain.
Yeah. So labor. I don't know if you've ever had children, but it's
No.
Have you had kids? Never.
No, I've got kittens. Kittens,
No,
that's
you've
it.
got kittens. Those are here.
Yeah, but I've never gone through No, I've never gone through
it's quite
that.
a painful. Not that I've been through it, but I've seen my wife go through it.
Of course,
it's
yes.
Like, whoa, this is
I've seen it on the telly. I've seen it on the telly. Yes.
Hectic, intense pain. I remember she gripped my arm and she was like digging her nails into my arm, and I couldn't say anything. I couldn't go, oh my God, you're hurting me, because I'm like, well, that's nothing compared to what you're going through.
Yes.
But why is the birth process so painful? And then she had as a epidural, and they punctured her spine, and so she had double vision, and it's like, oh my goodness, what a performance to birth a new life. I mean, is this really of the spirit? Then I'm holding this child, And it occurred to me, because she was knocked out, she had a anesthetic, she had
Yeah.
an emergency C-section. I'm holding this child and I'm going, wow, I could just drop this child on its head. I could abandon it. I could do anything, and it's completely helpless.
Yeah.
What a crazy thing that has just happened. You know, this child has come into the world and is completely
Crying.
helpless, now at the mercy of a world which it has no control over. You know, when
No.
you're a baby, no control over what happens to you. I mean, what a setup that is for
And they
being
have to
a victim.
scream, don't they? They have to scream to get
Well,
their breaths.
the first thing you do is you scream. "Ah!" You know, you come into, because it's like I was all warm and comfortable in there. Now I've been pushed out or lifted out, and it's
Into
kind
this.
of cold and it's bright, and there's people, and I don't know what the hell's going on. And
Yeah, of
you know,
course.
put me back. I'm going to scream because it's a trauma.
Of
They do
course.
something called rebirthing breathing, where they go back
Right.
into the birth trauma
Right.
and try and heal, because it's the first trauma in our lives. Before that, everything was
course.
okay. We were maybe, you know, it's possible something could have happened in the womb. The pregnancy went wrong, but okay, let's say the pregnancy all went fairly smoothly. Everything's okay in the womb. It's warm, it's safe, it's comfortable. You're being
Yeah.
fed continuously. Now suddenly, whoa, pushed out. You know, immediate. Your first experience of life is a trauma. I mean, only the ego could design such a system.
Yeah, there's some women have baby after baby. So that's interesting. They're happy
well,
enough.
they
But that's
get
their
a
instinct.
capacity.
It's their instinct, of
Oh.
course.
It's a powerful instinct, but it's what keeps the whole game going. You know, people keep having sex, keep having children. It keeps the whole game of separation going. We keep having new so-called people populating the planet, keeps the game of separation going.
And yet we're still the same, though.
Ultimately,
We're still the same, no different to 100 or 1,000 years ago. We're still the same person, really, aren't we? All thinking the same, no private thoughts. It is odd. It is very odd, the game we're playing.
You look at it, you know, you just look at the game of human life, what we take for granted. I think it was shocking for me when I actually stood in that moment. It was like I hadn't really thought about birth until that point. I mean, because you're born and you grow up and it's like, it's okay.
You take it for granted, yeah.
You're just living your life. But then suddenly it was like, oh, wow, this is how it all starts. And I did this 42 years ago. I came into the world as a helpless infant, and I chose to and it was, you know, because I'd been doing all the spiritual work, it was like closing the loop. I was like, oh my God, I see, you know, cycle of birth and death. I see how the ego works. I see it puts us from the start into a position that is very weak and very fragile and very, very vulnerable. And we go, oh, this is amazing new life. But actually, that mind has just got itself enslaved into a body. And inevitably is going to have suffering. They learn of sorrow, separation, and death as they grow up.
Well,
I think my experience with my son, he's learned of separation. I was separated from him for 3 years. Now I'm separated again. Okay, temporarily, I'm going back soon.
Yes.
But he's learned of separation, and this is what Yeshua's saying. You know, they learn through pain. They learn. They have these. I mean, we know where do your traumas come from? In childhood, that's where the trauma is. You might have karma, which then, you know, causes the traumas to be experienced again in this life. But that's where the pattern of our life is set in the first 7 years of life, through these, you know, often quite traumatic experiences that we go through as children, and then that stays with us forever. And he's saying, well, just look at it. Let's look honestly at the system that the ego has created, and you see that this cannot be of love. This is not pure formless awareness of perfect love. It's all about the separation from love and having your own identity. So they learn of sorrow, separation, and death. Sooner or later, every child learns about death quite quickly. You know, you have a pet, it dies.
Or
maybe a human dies.
The grandmother or something. Yeah.
You know, worse, a parent dies. You know, and their parent, they go, oh, you know, big trauma. But they start learning of death quite quickly. They learn of separation. They learn of sorrow, saying, is this really the world that, you know, perfect love would have created?
Well, yes.
Where this is so-called the learning of the world. You know, as you grow up, you have to learn these tough lessons, and we go, oh well, you know, this is the way of the world, you've got to learn it. But what you're learning is the way of separation, and you're learning to disconnect more and more from your innocence and your truth as you grow up. And so we become more and more disconnected. And then in, you know, adulthood, we wonder why we feel lost and we feel alone and afraid, and
Depression.
we've
Yeah.
disconnected
Depression's a
ourselves
big
from
one.
ourselves.
A lot of people get
Yeah,
depression.
depressed. What's the point of it all? At some point, everyone asks, you know, what is the point of this journey I'm on? Why is there so much pain and suffering? Why has my life been the way it has? With the
Well,
dramas
some
and the
people
trauma.
seem to switch off from it, don't they? There's some people just seem to harden themselves. I don't know how they manage, really. I mean, you know, this is
Well,
why.
it's a defense mechanism. You just you shove it all down. You say, okay, well, I'll just put that pain away, and I'll get on with life, and I'll try and make the best of a bad deal. And usually,
Yeah.
then there's distractions. You know, you have to distract yourself. So addictions form, and whatever it is, holidays, relationships, shopping, substances, etc.
Yeah.
Because I've got to distract myself from the pain that I've shoved down there. And this path is saying, well, you can't do that. You've got to really look at that pain, the pain of your childhood, and you know, the underlying subconscious pain in your mind is where your ego lives. And that's what you've got to undo. Okay, and carry on. Their minds seem to be trapped.
Their minds seem to be trapped in their brain, and its powers to decline if their bodies are hurt.
Crazy. Like, how can our mind be trapped in our brain? But this is what we think. Oh, my mind's in my brain. A lot of people say, oh, my brain is full, or my brain is fried. Or no, it's not really your brain at all. Your brain is just the hardware through which your consciousness can now come in and operate in this world. But the mind is what's governing it all. And, you know, we've seen through people's experiences like near-death experiences, astral travel, out-of-body experiences, that your mind is not actually trapped in your brain. You can free your mind from your brain and go beyond the body.
Yeah.
But this is the you know, the scientific materialist paradigm. Go to integral model again. It tells us the bizarre belief is that you think you're a brain, you think you're a body, you think you're a brain, and they honestly believe that your brain is the source of your consciousness. You know, that's the paradigm. You have
body,
consciousness because of your brain. What? Really? So then what created the brain and the body then? Well, they can't explain that. Oh, those just came out of nothing then, did they? Where did those come from? Is there no intelligence behind them? So they've denied, you know, the scientific materialist paradigm at its extreme denies you even have a mind. So you don't have a mind, you're just a body. Your consciousness is an accidental occurrence of your brain. And when your brain dies, your body dies, and your consciousness goes, and that's it. End of.
It's very sad, isn't it?
No acknowledgement of an interior state that
Well,
is beyond.
Conventional medicine is very like that. They only treat the physical.
Well, it's based because it's based on a paradigm, you see. You got to understand it's based on the scientific materialist paradigm, which started to arise in about the 15th century in as a counter to the church and all of that dogma that was going on. And they said, no, it's all about science. It's about what we can see and measure and observe. And this whole paradigm built up, and it's become a dogma. Rupert Sheldrake, you know, is probably the greatest critic of it. He says this paradigm has become a dogma because it is not, there's no evidence for it. In fact, the evidence indicates otherwise. The evidence definitely shows there is an interior dimension of our consciousness we call mind, where our thoughts and our emotions and our states of mind and our perceptions, and that's where reality is actually happening in our mind. And then the objective world is just an extension of that, or a projection of that in Course terms. So it isn't primary reality, it's secondary reality. It's the effect of what's primary, which is in the interior. And yet the scientists deny it. They say, no, we just go because it's scientific. Our method's scientific. There's no evidence for any of this. But there is a lot of evidence. Thanks, Mel. Thank you. Okay, thanks. I'm getting some sustenance from my mother.
Oh,
Just
that's
haven't had
nice.
lunch.
Oh,
Some soup.
nice.
Yeah. I'll probably just do dinner, man. That's fine. By the time I'm finished, it'll be nearly dinner. Okay. Yeah, we just negotiated on power cuts and stuff. But you
Of
see,
course.
it's a construct, and allopathic medicine
Yeah.
is based on this construct. It's based on the dogma that says, okay, we're bodies, we're brains. This is primary reality, and really doesn't acknowledge this. The sort of psychiatry kind of acknowledges this, says, okay, there's some kind of interior thing going on, but we will treat it from this perspective. So what do? They treat it with drugs. They say, well, your problem is you've got an imbalance of chemicals in your brain. So therefore, we're going to give a drug to address the balance because the cause of your problem is the chemistry in the brain. So therefore, the drugs are the way to
Seen it time
solve
and time again, yeah. Yes.
But it doesn't work.
The disaster,
surely,
yeah.
like, you keep doing the same thing over and over again. Evidently, then, the paradigm must be wrong because it doesn't work very well. But they don't question it. Now, there's a whole business model, the whole medical industry and the drug industry, massive $1 trillion industry, built on a false idea, on a false philosophy, which is why it doesn't work. And the only way out of that, I realized because I had some experience a few years ago when I was working with a psychiatrist who I went to school with. And the idea was to try and bring mindfulness. So more of this interior upper left quadrant stuff, training of the mind training, meditation, etc., into that system, the mental health care system. And I realized, we were just trying with the staff, but they didn't want to change. They just wanted to carry on business as usual, based on a false paradigm. And really, you realize then the whole system has got to go. You can't build truth on illusion. It's a foundation of the system is illusion. It's a false philosophy. The whole thing has to go, and you have to create a new system. So in the exterior world, the new objective and interobjective reality, the systems that we create, have to be based on the truth. So you design the system from scratch based on truth that, the truth is the real problem lies in the mind. That's always where the problem lies. And then the body is just a projection of the mind. That's the correct philosophy on which any system should be built. So then the healthcare system should be built on that idea. And then you would incorporate things like mindfulness, meditation, because you go, well, it's all about the mind. It's all about, the person's thoughts and beliefs. So if we can change that, then the body will follow. The biochemistry of the brain and the body will correct itself when the mind is in alignment with its source. And, there's a lot of evidence to support that conclusion. Mindfulness, people like Bruce Lipton talk about the biology of belief and how the mind really does play a primary role in people's health and well-being. And more enlightened doctors are starting to accept that. But the primary modality is still based on a really an outdated system that is false.
Totally.
It's proven false.
Very frustrating.
So we need a new system from scratch, built on foundation of truth. And that's why we're here. We can be agents of building a system like that, not for the system's sake, but just so that people can learn the truth and they can heal. That's the whole point. The system, it shouldn't be a sickness system. It should be a system of healing, really healing the mind, which it isn't at the moment. That system is not a healing system. It's a sickness system, designed really just to perpetuate the sickness. They don't really want to heal it. They just want to perpetuate it and make a lot of money from it. particularly with things like the lifestyle, mental illnesses, a lot of the things, heart disease, strokes, cancer. These are things that they don't do very well at fixing.
No.
You
No.
gotta, need a heart operation, replace a heart, or you need a hip replacement, or you need something mechanical done. That the system works because it's on the mechanical level. Yeah, but when you're talking about mind,
But the mind, no,
as soon as the mind's involved, doesn't work well at
very
all.
frustrating, to watch. You can't believe it, really.
Well, that's just the false world we live in. You see the product of a false thought system. If the philosophy is wrong, is that if the underpinning, the fundamental premise of the system is incorrect, then what can you expect but falsity and a system that is dysfunctional doesn't work? And so it was a good lesson for me because I realized, well, I can't fix the system. The system just has to be done away with. You need a better system. You need to replace the system with another one that's based on truth, designed from scratch with this in mind. And so you wouldn't bother with drugs and, all of the paraphernalia that
idols.
You wouldn't do that. You would just go, well, let's teach people these kinds of principles. Let's teach them to become aware of their own thoughts and emotions. We teach them how to let go of those thoughts and emotions. We'll teach them meditation. We'll teach them breath work. Then they don't need us anymore. We've healed them. Off you go. You don't need to keep coming back into the system. You healed, and that should be the objective. Not ongoing money spinning. Oh, we'll just keep the person in a state of sort of semi illness, semi wellness, and we'll feed them drugs and we'll make a fortune. In their lifetime, because they'll take millions of rands of drugs, and the system's being fed. Well, that's the dysfunctional system. It's not about the system. The system should serve a purpose. So this is all part of it. We're born into this illusion that we're bodies and we're brains. And then all things start going wrong because you've got a false belief. Things start going wrong from the start. Okay, I want to carry on. Number 8.
Yeah, they seem to love, yet they desert and are deserted. They seem to love. Who seem to love? They
desert. So they desert others and they are deserted. Abandoned.
Yeah.
They desert and they are deserted, or they are, could say, desert, abandon. I don't know. Do you think abandon's better than desert?
I suppose they're both the same. Pretty much the same.
No, I mean pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. It's all contradictory.
Desert and desert are the same word, aren't they? Desert, desert, noun.
Yes.
Desert, verb. Well, when you desert, you end up in a desert. It feels, very lonely. You feel abandoned and alone.
Yeah, interesting how the English language, not the language, is being put together, isn't it? Amazing. The symbols that are in each word.
So they appear to lose what they love.
But then, yet they desert and are deserted.
And they appear to lose what they love.
Yeah.
You want to carry on? Read the rest of it?
Yep. They appear to lose what they love, perhaps the most insane belief of all. But that's what we think.
Yeah, that you can lose what you love. Because what you love, if it's the ego's love, it's form. You love the idol. You love the false image. To be a person, you love your parents, you love a particular person, you love an activity, you love a job, you love a substance, you love a whatever, and you appear, that can be taken away from you. fear to lose what they love, perhaps the most insane belief of all.
Mm.
Because how can you really lose? If you really love, if it's genuine love, you can't lose it, because genuine love is eternal.
Mm.
And their bodies wither and gasp and are laid in the ground.
And yeah, I know. And their bodies wither and gasp and are laid in the ground and are no more.
And that's
Yeah,
the human
that's
story.
the grim
You
side of
look
it.
you look at the timeline. Well, this is, birth. You grow up. There's what he's saying is there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of pain, suffering, sorrow that characterizes your childhood, and then it continues on into adulthood. I mean, this
Never ends.
this is just a hypothetical example of what a human life could be. But I know people in the community who've had some of these experiences. So you just, this is a average human life, and then in the end you die.
Yes.
Your body fades away, it gets older, and eventually you die. And you go, well, what was it all about? Why did I experience all of that? What was the point of any of it, really? And this teaching is telling us very clearly there was no point. It was a delusion.
Yeah.
You were mistaken in your identity. And because you denied your true identity, you invented this crazy false self, which now has to be human and experience all this pain, suffering, sickness, trauma, and death in order to perpetuate that false identity. And that's what your human life is about. Seen from the ego's perspective, from the spirit's perspective, it's about awakening from that dream, the nightmare of being a separate self, into the truth of who you really are. And that's the purpose of your life. So now you see you have the two fundamental purposes. Am I going to be in the red, believing in the trauma and the pain of life, or am I going to believe in the Holy Spirit and its interpretation of the trauma, which says, well, it's just another letting go opportunity to free your mind from this insane belief in the separate self. And that's what your life is really for. It's to escape from the dream, to teach you to escape. And not one of them is not thought that God is cruel.
Yeah, not
One of them is not thought that perfect love is cruel. So every one of them, it's not one of them is not thought. So every one of them has thought at some point. Every one of them has thought that perfect love is cruel. Because you look in the world and you go, well, if God created this must be a cruel God. So much trauma, so much pain, so much suffering, so much sickness, so much death. Well, logically, whatever created that must be cruel. So then you believe in a cruel God because you believe that God created the world. That's still the fundamental belief of most people. If they believe in God, the atheists don't know what created them. It's like, well, the world just randomly kind of came about, and they can't really explain why. But either way, you disconnected from your source. You have no idea who you are and what the truth is. And then you must believe that God is cruel and that the world is a cruel, harsh place, and that punishment in the form of all these traumas is real and deserved. And if you believe that, well, of course, you're going to suffer more traumas because that's your belief. It's what you believe you think you deserve. Yeah. So it's a very sobering, this is a stick lesson. He's saying, hey, let's look at it. Honestly look at the human experience, and if you're honest, you will see what he's saying. You have to acknowledge that what he's saying is true. And you can't sugarcoat it. You can't make this into, oh, well, it's all okay and God created it and I don't really know why, but you can experience joy here as well. Yes, you can. You only experience joy because you can let go of all the insanity. The only way you're ever going to experience joy is to let go of the unreality of the dream and believe only in the truth, which is the source of joy. Okay, so what's he saying here in summary? Let's summarize that in brief.
Well, it's just like birth and death is insane, because we're going to, wither and die, and before, many have thought that God was a cruel world, and it's just a totally delusional system that's made up of guilt. And if you look carefully at the world, you can realize that this is so.
Delusional system of those made mad by guilt. Wow. I'm living in a delusional system of those made mad by guilt.
Yeah.
You just ponder that for a moment. And then a lot of what you observe in the world makes sense. Well, why is there all this craziness? Why all the chaos
Shootings.
and the craziness?
A lot of shootings.
Just pain, suffering, people killing each other. I mean, every day people are killing each other. People are dying of sickness and disease, killing each other, fighting, conflict. It's madness, really, if you're honest.
It is.
It's chaos. And he's saying, but look at it correctly, and you'll see this is just a delusional system of those made mad by guilt. Do you really want this? Do you want to be part of this? Or are you willing to let go of your ego and escape it? Because the world is the product of a separate self. Your separate self concept is the reason for the existence of the world, seeming existence of the world. The world is the symbol of punishment. All the laws that seem to govern it are the laws of death. It's a death wish, so what can you expect but death? And
So
the life that gets born into it, children are born into it, there's pain immediately. They suffer pain, sorrow, separation, death. Maybe not all at once. So it doesn't, see, the ego can't, it's cunning because it's not so bad necessarily.
No, but you can't see in a child often, you can't see that innocence, like a lovely smiling, beaming baby. You can see the essence is clearer in that baby than, say, an adult. So the source is still there.
Yeah. And then as the child grows up, it learns of the ways of the world. And it gets conditioned. The world can hurt you. I need to be careful. Fear is justified. And all that conditioning, that program comes back.
So the initial
shock.
Well,
that seems to be so.
Yeah. So you'll see that in your child, won't you? You'll probably see the innocence. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember there was one photo when he was about 4 months old. It was just, you could see the light shining through it. It was beautiful.
Yes, it is. It's lovely to see that.
But then it's going to be, he's going to grow up and he's going to get conditioned into the world. And then that light gets covered over.
Well, hopefully
he's got to learn the ways of the world.
Well, maybe a little bit of this might come through, though, to him. Your teachings,
hopefully. Hopefully it will. And in time, he will go, okay, well, I need to maybe I need to look into this when he's ready.
Yeah, of course.
Right now, he's 8 years old. He's on the path of he's learning the ways of the world, of the ego. And you try and guide him as much as you can, but
he has to do it himself.
Yeah, there's a journey to be undertaken. We've kind of almost got to wind ourselves into the ego and then unwind ourselves. So say to him, well, don't bother with anything. Don't bother with playing football, or don't bother studying, or don't, that's not going to be helpful.
No,
He's
no,
got to
no.
go through those experiences.
He's got to
So
do his
go,
journey.
you're going to learn through the football, and you will have it's, dualistic, anything in this world. You might have triumphs, and you might have excitement and good times, and then you might also have the disappointments and the down times, and that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And that's, you've got to learn through those.
Yes, yes.
But that's all very dualistic. I mean, perfect love, pure formless awareness of perfect love,
It's just pure joy.
doesn't vary, it doesn't change, it doesn't have ups and happy experiences.
No,
It's
no.
constant, it never changes.
Mm.
And your body can't die. There's no death, there's no sickness, there's no death, there's no suffering. And he's asking us to choose that above this extremely dualistic world. It's you see, it's very fraught with the duality. Always got the opposite. If you have a good experience, well, then
It's no sooner. Yeah, that's true.
often you can have a bad experience very soon afterwards. Good and bad, light and dark. These seem to play themselves off against each other over and over, until you make a consistent choice for the one against the other. You can't consistently choose for the ego. It's not possible. Because the spirit, you can't undo the spirit, so that will always be there. So the only consistent logical choice you can make is for the spirit. Say, okay, I deny the ego. No more. And then he's trying to train us through all of this mind training to come to our own conclusion in the matter and make the decision, because we realize it's the only sane thing that we can do. It's the only way out of this madness that we seem to be caught up in.
Very true. It's a tricky one, though, because
there's only one way. If you acknowledge that there's only one way, then there's no choice, is there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just you
There's only
still have
one
to
way.
do.
Okay, well, there's no choice then. There's only that one way, so I go that way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just you've still got the car to repair. You've still got all the stuff to do in the house and do all the menial chores. So what do you mean, be in joy when the car's getting repaired or when it breaks down?
Well, it's a thought system. The one way is to give it all over to the spirit, and you say, well,
Oh, I
I'm
see.
not
Yes.
really in charge. I'm not doing it. I'm not in charge here. I'm not trying to perpetuate my ego's thought system and make this illusory identity real in any way. So yeah, I'll deal with the car, but not in a way that's going to perpetuate my ego.
That
So the
makes you,
guilt and fear
grumpy
and anxiety and whatever else, that's all dropped. And you just go, okay, well, I'll do what I need. I'll phone
yes,
a garage and I'll make arrangements, and I can do that all in an unemotional way. I don't have to get
true. Yes.
any negative emotions coming into that. In fact, the whole process can be quite enjoyable. If I can accept it, I can flow with it. I can, okay, well, I'm doing that. It can be quite joyful.
Yes, it's joyful when you've actually cleaned the whole house out, but when you're doing it, it's tiring. But the Holy Spirit would.
Can you get to a base level of acceptance at least?
Oh, yes.
Well, I'm not avoiding it. There's no resistance to it. I can just do it. And you might find, if you're at acceptance, that maybe some joy starts coming through on that.
Especially when you're finished and it's shining clean, and then that's the joy.
But in the process, you might go, well, I'm cleaning the house and I put some music on. It's a nice day. My cats and my dogs are with me. Hey, it's okay.
It's true. Oh, yes, there's two ways to look at it. It's just actually funny enough that the dogs were getting under my feet, so I was the other way around. I went, oh, you're back under my feet again. So I can see I'm learning. I'm still.
It could be a joyful experience. You could put some music on. You could make a little dance of it. You could go, hey, I'm vacuuming.
Oh, some people, I know some of my friends love housework. They love ironing. So yes, they've actually got into the Holy Spirit.
Well, it can be like a meditation. Okay, I'm just
some
very
people
present.
do.
I'm doing the ironing. My mind is quiet. I'm focused just on this one thing, so it stops the monkey mind. So they feel a sense of relief and joy in that.
Yeah, no,
So
I had a
every
friend who loved
experience,
it.
housework, menial chores can be an opportunity for mind training, for joy to come through.
Yes. Oh yeah, I can
And
see
so
that.
that's what we've been asked to look at, to see, see it differently.
Yeah, it's
All
funny,
of this can be given to the spirit.
my friend, I mean, she passed away a couple of years ago. She was only 47, actually. I used to watch her cleaning, and you could see that was the time when she was most joyful with the mop. And then
Yeah.
she'd put a bit of ABBA on, and I could just see the joy in her. So that was very interesting to watch.
And there you've had an example. You can do it that way. Instead of being outcome oriented, you saying, mistake you're making there is you're saying the joy comes from the outcome. No,
Oh, I see.
the
Yes.
joy
Well,
comes
yeah,
from the process, not
that's
the
right.
outcome.
Yeah,
The process. Enjoy the
yeah.
process.
Well, my
The
friend
outcome
was a
looks after
good
itself.
example. Yeah.
No. She
However,
enjoyed
she
the
did
process.
she did, but then she had, as soon as she was not doing her cleaning, then she'd be into drugs and alcohol. So that was a bit unfortunate. So the ego came in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she
So,
had
but
she had a shadow side that she hadn't dealt with, and then it
yeah,
manifested.
unfortunately, she's no longer here. So yeah, but she was great, lovely to watch her when she was with animals or cleaning.
Hmm.
A wonderful
Yeah. So
person.
there's
Yeah.
an example. On one level, there was she could access spirit, but on another level,
Yes.
she had to integrate it. So she had she had this dysfunction, and unless you address it,
Yeah.
then you're not you can't ever come into full enlightenment. You've got to
No.
deal with
Yeah.
the shadow side.
Yeah.
She obviously didn't know how to do that. So
No. No.
but yeah, well, she'll come back. She'll have another go.
Oh
Okay,
yes.
another lifetime, another lesson.
Yeah.
Tempted
Yeah.
again. Drugs and alcohol still be there. So I'm tempted with that, but she
Hopefully.
could make a different choice in her next life. So well, maybe I can learn
Yeah.
from that experience. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Someone once said to me, said, "Oh, you said in one of your past lives, you were a heroin addict." I mean, how he got that, I don't know. Like, well, maybe,
Interesting.
maybe not, but there's always been something in me in this life that said, no, don't go there. Don't even take one step down that path of exploring drugs.
No. Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
have. Oh, well, why? Because many people do. It's like, oh yeah, great, bring it on. Because you're experimenting, you're young, why not?
When you're young,
But
yeah.
something in me says, don't go there. So why? Maybe that's a little bit of a lesson that I learned in a past life. Like, okay,
Yeah.
that wasn't a good idea. don't go there again because it didn't work too well, So
Yeah. No, it's not pleasant because
then in
somebody's
this life, it's like, okay, no, there's a clear
yeah.
no, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to follow a different path. It's going to be a
Well,
clean path, not
yeah.
substances. It's going to be with my mind and my breath.
Yes,
And,
I'm the
just
same as you. Well, somebody when I was about 24, had put some LSD in when I'd had a drink or something, and my goodness, that was a good lesson. I never did it again. I would never do it
right.
because it was not. It was very
Yeah, you
everything
tripped
seemed
out.
larger than a life. It was just all coming in on me. So I just said to myself, I've got to go to bed, and I just went to bed. I thought I can't stand this, so it was a good lesson because I didn't want to ever go anywhere near drugs. So that was lucky for me there, but that was just that one incident, of course. So
Well,
luckily
it's
that good lesson.
trying to escape. You see, people are using the drugs to try and escape this reality. They want another reality. So it's a quick, easy, just pop a pill, smoke something, shoot up on some whatever, and it alters your state. And whoa, suddenly I escape my normal, humdrum, mundane world.
Everything's
With all of
brighter
my
and
ego
shinier.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, depending on what your preference is, you take a drug, gives you a different experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
LSD will changes your perception. Oh wow, the world's come alive. Or
It was
heroin will
too.
just take you into
Yeah.
deep peace. It'll be like the peace of God that
Yes.
surpasses understanding, except it's chemically generated. So of
Yeah.
course, the downside is
Flip
you come
side.
down off that, and then there's a huge downer, and then you need the chemical again. It's an attempt to change your state with magic. That's what drugs are. And of course, magic, as we know, is of the ego. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Temporarily, if someone's in a distress Like, let's say they're schizophrenic and they're dangerous to themselves. No, you might put them on a drug to try and stabilize them. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
But as a long-term solution, you need to correct the mind. You need to train the mind, and then the biochemistry will resolve itself. Problem is in the mind, not in the biochemistry. The biochemistry is the effect and not the cause. And this is what they always do. You see, they switch cause and effect around. So now the effect becomes the cause and the cause becomes the effect. And of course, then whatever solution you try and create is going to be upside down. You're actually treating the effect and not the cause. Insane, but that's the system that that the upside down thought system of the ego has developed. Then we have the insane ideas that somehow we have a vaccine and that's going to work because the cause is the virus. No, the cause is in the mind. That's the problem. The virus is in your mind. It's a thought system that's the problem. Correct that, and then it's not a problem. Virus, like, okay, I had something, I don't know if it was COVID, I tested positive, but it was like, okay, well, so what? It's a few symptoms, you deal with it, it's over in a few days, and off you go. Like, what's the big deal? There's no investment in sickness. It just passes through, it's gone. But look at all the investment.
There's a lot of elderly people did pass away, in the
sickness.
homes.
I mean, extraordinary. Oh, making the body real. It's all about making the body real, making this world real.
It was all very strange, wasn't it?
No. It was upside down. It was a good example of an upside down thought system in action. Literally on a global scale. Right now, you've got this upside down thought system. There's no logic to it. That's now governing people's lives and is dictating how we should live and what we should do, and totally insane. So, but it's a good lesson because you go, well, you thought the world was sane? Okay, really? Well, the lesson is no, it's completely, the world you see is the delusional system of those made mad by guilt. He's telling us straight.
Yeah.
Look at it carefully and you see that this is true. You will realize that this is so. Just look at what happens with things like COVID. And you go, that's just totally insane.
Well, it was.
Oh, well, that's exactly what he's telling us. Totally insane. Can't make any sense of it. Total insanity.
But I think it's brought quite
a good lesson.
It's been a good lesson
for a spiritual being to learn from that. To say, okay, it's totally insane. Get it. Maybe I have this illusion somehow the world had some aspects of sanity to it, but it doesn't really.
Yeah. It's made people go within now, you see, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all the insanity of the ego makes you search for the answer within you.
Yeah.
And that's the only purpose of it. Okay, well, it's going to bring you ultimately back to God.
Yeah.
Because everyone has a limit as to how many illusions and how much insanity they can tolerate. Okay, so I think that's number 2, paragraph 2 done.
Yeah.
Number 3, this for the real world.
Am I going into the alternative or?
No, there's a bit to translate, so read original.
Okay.
And then the alternative.
I need it to just bring it down a little.
Well, there, if this were the real world. Up there, number 3. This were the real world.
It's just I'm on my iPhone, so I need to just adjust it there. Right. If this were the real world, God would be cruel. Right. And if this were the real world, pure formless awareness of perfect love would be cruel. And I can't see number 2 on the original.
No.
Obviously with me on my iPhone. For no father could subject his children to this as the price of salvation and be loving. For no source could subject its extensions to this as the price of freedom and be loving.
Oh.
Love Yeah.
Stating it very clearly. This is not
Yeah.
God's world.
Yeah.
How could a God of love make its extension suffer so much? What is the price? You've got to suffer as the price of salvation. Suffering is required to be loving.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Mm. Love does not kill to save. Mm.
Love does not kill to free.
To free. Hold on, where am I? I can't. Oh,
Or if it did, attack would be salvation.
sorry. If it did, attack would be salvation, and this is the ego's interpretation, not God's. If it did, attack would be freedom, and this is the ego's interpretation, not perfect love's.
Just change that to the belief in separations.
Interpretation. And not perfect loves.
Okay, only the world of guilt.
Only the world of guilt could demand this, but only the guilty could conceive of it. And only the world of guilt could demand this, but only the guilty could conceive it.
Conceive of it, yeah.
Conceive of it.
So only guilt can create attack. Attack would be freedom. So that the ego tells you attack someone else, offload your guilt onto them, and then you'll be free of your guilt.
Right.
Like only this insane world of guilt could demand or even conceive of this.
Yeah. Adam's? Am I in the original or the?
Adamson, yeah, it's original. Adamson could have touched no one.
Just move this down. Adam's sin could have touched no one, but had he not believed it was the Father who drove him out of paradise. Adam's sin could not have touched no one had he not believed it was the source who drove him out of paradise.
Maybe we could make it paradise is pure formless awareness.
Yeah.
For in that belief,
Right. For in that belief, the knowledge of the source was lost, since only those who do not understand it could believe it.
do not understand. So this myth, the Adam and Eve myth, apparently Adam and Eve were driven out the garden because of their sin. That's a misinterpretation. That's people who wrote that story believed in sin and guilt, and they believed in human beings separate from God. God's some kind of entity out there that can punish us, and none of this is true. It's all a story conceived by the ego. Only those who do not understand what their source is could believe it. Okay, so what's he, you want to summarize paragraph 3? What's he saying in summary there?
Well, if this was the real world, pure formless awareness would be cruel. Because there would be no God could possibly give this to his children for the price of freedom. Because love does not kill, it doesn't kill your freedom, it's your source.
Oh, and this is why the conventional religions struggle. They say God is love, but then there's all this pain and suffering. But God created the world. Okay, so if God is love, how could God create a world of such pain and suffering? Doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
There's the fundamental contradiction at the heart of every formal religion that makes God responsible for creating the world. And the only answer to that is, well, God didn't create the world. Okay, well, maybe he didn't create the world. It didn't create the world, which means the world is not real. That's the answer to the conundrum. Otherwise, you sit there going, well, how could a loving God do this? And we're watching, did you watch that movie I posted last year?
Beautiful.
Orally recommended, the Miracles.
Oh, yes.
Miracles. Did you watch that one?
I watched the Miracles in Heaven, the girl in the tree.
Girl in the tree,
God,
exactly. Yeah.
God is.
So you remember the lady, her name was Christy, I think, the
yes.
mother. And
Yeah,
she went
she
to
was...
the priest and she said, you tell me then why a loving God would cause so much suffering to my child. And he said, I can't answer that.
Yeah.
Because within that thought system is no answer. But he did say, to his credit, he said, but I do know that, if you believe in love, then it's going to feel a lot better than if you believe in the opposite.
Yes, that was very profound.
Kind of a practical wisdom. It's like, okay, well, you still have a choice as to how you believe, but they cannot explain that conundrum within their framework. The framework of religion, God created the world. It doesn't make sense. There's a logic that doesn't connect there. Because how could then, if God created the world, how could the world be such a place of suffering and pain and sickness and death? Well, and then, if you look at that logically, you have to come to the conclusion that either God is not a God of love, God is actually a psychopath to do this to us. Okay, that's one interpretation, in which case you've got a God not of love, which would then be the ego, the devil. Or you go, well, actually, God is a God of love, and God had absolutely nothing to do with this world. God didn't create the world, so the world's an illusion. And that, the latter is the only answer. Okay, God didn't create the world, so therefore it's not real. Therefore, I don't have to try and justify. I don't have to make sense of what doesn't make sense. I don't have to try and figure out how a loving God could do this, because a loving God didn't do this, you see? And then you have a clear way out. Okay, I just have to recognize the truth that God had nothing to do with this. This is my own miscreation. It has no real existence, and I can let it go and free myself from it. And then you have the way out, because the letting go then becomes with that metaphysical truth in mind, letting go becomes the only answer. And there's clearly no other way out of the delusion but to let go of your belief in it. As he says, in that belief, the knowledge of the source was lost. So as soon as you believe in separation, you believe in sin and guilt, you believe you can be abandoned, punished by God, then you've lost the knowledge of the source. Because that's not what the source is. The source is unconditional love. Unconditional means it doesn't matter what you do, the love is still there. You don't get punished for doing something, because that wouldn't be unconditional, would it? So, the story, Adam and Eve, and most of the Bible is written from the egoic perspective, not understanding unconditional love. And so then you get all these twisted distortions, and try and make sense of it. And they say, well, don't try and make sense of it, my child, just accept. It's just, it's a mystery. We can't know these things. I mean, nonsense. Of course, you've got to know it. Doesn't make sense, you figure it out. There's an answer to it, And that's what the enlightened beings of the world have done. They've gone, okay, I'm not prepared to settle for a pat answer. I want to know the answer, really. Myself, experientially. People like Yeshua and the Buddha did that. They went, okay, I'm not satisfied with the answers my society and my culture and my religion are giving me. I want to really know the truth. And then they dig and they dive deep. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, dive deep and swim far, and they come back with an expanded experience of life and the truth that explains and overlooks the old. And then they are change agents in their society, because they go, well, the old doesn't really cut it. The old paradigm doesn't work. So we change it. There's a new way of thinking. Okay, so any other comments, questions on number 3?
No, you've explained that very well.
Okay, so last one, number 4. The world is a picture.
The world is a picture of the crucifixion of God's Son. The world is a picture of the crucifixion of perfect love's extension. And until you realize that God's Son cannot be crucified, that this is the world you will see. And until you realize that perfect love's extension cannot be crucified, this is the world you will perceive. Yeah.
The world is a picture of the crucifixion. So it's the out-picturing, projection outwards of this idea of the crucifixion. So we can attack and kill and destroy perfect love's extension. No wonder it's insane. I mean, you look at the thought system behind it. Well, what else would you expect?
Which, of course, it's impossible, but yeah. Yeah.
Okay, next one, until you realize that.
Yeah, 3, isn't it? Yeah. Yet you will not realize this until you accept the eternal fact that God's Son is not guilty. Yeah, that's quite clear.
To accept the eternal fact that perfect love's extension is not guilty. Right? So we have to accept, it's a simple truth. You accept it or you don't.
Yeah, that's it.
Not guilty. You're guilty or you're not. You're innocent or you're guilty. No, those are the choices.
Yeah.
Ego's telling you guilty and you're damned eternally for what you've done.
Yeah.
For this crazy idea of separating from your source, and the Spirit says, no, not at all. It's never happened.
Yeah.
So you're still innocent. You remain as you were created or extended. 2 different thought systems, 2 different realities, and you can't mix them. You can't believe you're guilty and innocent.
No. Yeah.
So we must choose. Okay, so number 4 deserves only love. The extension deserves only love.
It deserves only love because it has given only love.
I'm going to change that because it's a bit impersonal. Extension is the it, by the way. That's being referred to in the previous sentence. But everyone deserves only love because
extension. Oops.
They have given only love.
Oops. Sorry, it's just
Hello?
somebody trying to ring me there, and I'm trying to decline it. I'm on my iPhone, you see.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Hopefully they've gone. Yeah, it's okay. They've gone. Right.
Mm.
Sorry, we're just.
Everyone deserves only love because they have given only love.
Yeah, because they have given only love. Yeah.
The ego is going to tell you otherwise. Say, well, look, that person didn't give you love and that one didn't give you love. But what you're seeing is an illusion. That which didn't give you love is not real.
Mm.
They cannot be condemned because
They cannot be condemned because they have never condemned. And the at-one-ment is the final lesson they need to learn. For it teaches him that never having sinned, if has no need to awaken, it
they
have no need to awaken.
So that's the ultimate truth. It's never really happened. Separation never happened. We never sinned. And we don't need to wake up from a nightmare of that apparent sin and guilt because it never happened. We remain in the pure formless awareness. And that's ultimately where we're going with this. You'll be just so rooted in your truth as the one self that you are, that everything else just fades away. And is undone. Okay, so what's he saying here? If you want to summarize number 4 for us.
Well, the world is just a picture of a complete illusion. And until we realize that it's all just a lie and we can't be crucified, then we come back to the truth. And the final lesson is the at-one-ment, is where we'll learn, where it teaches us that we've never ever sinned.
Never having sinned, I have no need to awaken.
Yeah.
That's the final resolution of the delusion. You realize this never happened. The idea of separation never happened. So the sin and the guilt that seemed to come from that idea never happened. The fear never happened. The projection of that outwards into an illusion of a physical universe never happened. The dream of a human life in that world never happened. It's all just undone. I am that I am. I remain as I always have been in this eternal state of mind, pure formless awareness, perfect love. And nothing else is true. And this is the only way out. So, the only way out is you must deny every aspect of the dream. Whatever has come from the idea of separation, seemingly, is false and must be denied. No, that's the only way you're going to get back into the truth. Must deny the denial of truth. To accept the truth back into your mind. That's the Holy Spirit's function for you. To reinterpret all of the projections that you perceive outside of you in this world, reinterpret them and reinforce through that reinterpretation the existence of God, love, oneness, pure formless awareness, and only that. Okay, does that
Mhm.
make sense?
It does. Very good. This is a good session.
Yeah, powerful little 4 paragraphs, introduction to the whole thing.
Mhm.
Dive more into the guilt. This chapter is all about guilt. And guilt is the underpinning of the ego. So we must undo the guilt in order to be free. As long as we believe in guilt in any way, shape, or form, we're not free. Our mind is still enslaved into the illusion. Okay, so there is a...
I was just going to say I'll probably have to leave because I've got a plane to get in the morning and I've got a fair bit of packing to do. So
Okay.
I'm going to have to
Yeah.
make it a bit
You want
shorter
to
today.
do a meditation on this or not? I can take you through a meditation for, I don't know, 15 minutes on the personalized version.
I mean,
you
you
like.
could do it, but I would prefer it because I've got to actually go and see my friend. I need to do a quick delivery. So could I listen to it a little bit later?
Yeah, okay, I'll record it for you.
That would be great. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I've just realized I've got quite a bit of sort of packing to do. So,
No.
but I've got my
Well,
trusted house
maybe
sitters here now. They're a lovely couple from Spain. So,
okay. Nice.
yeah. So I'll go and say hello to them.
Okay. All right. So see you. Well, I don't know, you're traveling tomorrow, so maybe you won't make it. But
So it'll be Sunday. I'll
hmm,
listen in though.
yeah.
I'll be listening in to the recordings. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sunday afternoon we'll do a session.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Travel safely, Elaine.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
Namaste.
session. Namaste.
Well.
Bye.
All right. So let's just do a meditation on this to just making yourself comfortable, sitting feet shoulder width apart in a meditation posture, your back straight, cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes and start breathing in and out through the nose. Nice deep breath in through the nose. Clench the sphincter muscle to lock the energy in, draw the energy up your spine into your heart center, all the way up into the crown of your head, pausing at the top of the inhale. And just clear your mind. You're going to let go of any thoughts, emotions, body sensations going on. Seem to disturb your peace in any way. Blow them away with the breeze of your breath. Nothingness they really are. Clearing your mind, creating the space, emptiness, the openness for these words to drop in. So this is the personalized summary of introduction to chapter 13 of the text. So I'm going to read it. As I breathe in, you're going to, as I read it, you're going to breathe in. And then when I pause, you're going to exhale out through the nose, in and out through the nose, exhale out. And you state aloud, to say this as an affirmation. Really internalize this teaching. So just get into a nice, deep, slow, rhythmical pattern, breathing in and breathing out. So the stomach rises, the chest rises, and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. And you exhale, just letting it go. Get into that nice, deep, slow, rhythmical pattern of the breath. Just observing the breath. So background helps you bring your awareness, true awareness, into this meditation. So if I did not feel guilty as you breathe in, I could not attack. As you exhale, just repeat those words. And breathe in again. For condemnation is the root of attack. And exhale as you repeat those words aloud. And just keep in that cycle of breathing in as I speak and then exhaling out as you repeat the words I speak. I'll remind you to do that every so often. So is the judgment of one mind by another as unworthy of love and deserving of punishment. But herein lies the split. For the mind that judges perceives itself as separate from the mind being judged. Believing that by punishing another, it will escape punishment. All this is just a delusional attempt of my mind to deny itself, to deny its true identity, and escape the penalty of denial. Remember to breathe in as I speak and exhale out as you repeat the words. It is not an attempt to relinquish denial, but to hold on to it. For it is guilt that has obscured the source to me. It is guilt that has driven me insane. So just keep breathing in as I speak and out as you speak the words after me. Keep a nice deep rhythmical pattern going. And breath. Create the space, the awareness in which transformation can happen. An acceptance of guilt into the mind, perfect love's extension. was the beginning of the separation. As the acceptance of at-one-ment is its end. The world I see is the delusional system. All those made mad by guilt. I look carefully at this world. If I look carefully at this world, I will realize that this is so. For this world is the symbol of punishment. And all the laws that seem to govern it are the laws of death. Children are born into it through pain and in pain. Their growth is attended by suffering. And they learn of sorrow, separation, and death. Their minds seem to be trapped in their brain. And its powers to decline if their bodies are hurt. They seem to love, yet they desert and are deserted. They appear to lose what they love, perhaps the most insane belief of all. And their bodies wither and gasp and are laid in the ground and are no more. Every one of them is thought. God is cruel. So just keep watching your breath. Keeping the breath as the open, spacious awareness to receive these words. And keep breathing in tune with my words. So as I say the words, you breathe in, and then when I pause, you exhale and state the words out loud. If this were the real world, says Yeshua, pure formless awareness of perfect love would be cruel. For no source could subject its extensions to this. As the price of freedom and be loving. Love does not kill to free. If it did, attack would be freedom. And this is the ego's interpretation, not perfect love's. Only the world of guilt could demand this. Only the guilty could conceive of it. Adam's, quote, sin could have touched no one had he not believed. It was the source who drove him out of paradise, out of the state of pure formless awareness. When that belief, the knowledge of the source, was lost, since only those who do not understand the source could believe it. So just watch your breath, keeping that nice, deep, slow, rhythmical pattern of breathing going. And listen to this final paragraph. Breathe in as I speak and exhale out through your nose as you speak, and repeat the words I say. So let's finish this section with paragraph 4. This world is a picture of the crucifixion, perfect love's extension. Until I realized that perfect love's extension cannot be crucified. This is the world I will perceive. Yet, I will not realize this until I accept the eternal fact that perfect love's extension is not guilty. Everyone deserves only love because they have given only love. I cannot be condemned because I have never condemned. Enlightenment is the final lesson I need to learn. It teaches me that, never having sinned, I have no need to awaken. And then just rest in this deep peace and certainty. A few moments, nothing else to do, nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, just Sink inwards. To the truth of the one self that you are, and rest in that deep peace and love and tranquility. Rest in the quietness that is the same as the innocence of your true nature. A couple of minutes of deep silence and let this teaching just permeate into the depths of your mind. Beyond the ego, beyond the belief in guilt and sin and fear and attack, lies the truth of your eternal innocence. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, just breathe in and out through your nose, relax, be still. Surrender into the knowledge that you never sinned. You never made any mistakes, you never sinned. Nothing ever happened, nothing ever went wrong. And so just coming back, this deep state of awareness to the body and the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, breathing in, noticing the body, sensations, the breath. That'll flow in through the nostrils, clench your sphincter muscle, lock the energy in, draw the energy up the spine into the crown of your head. Another sip of air in there. Scan your mind and notice any thoughts of guilt and sin. Often those come as blame, grievances, blaming others or blaming yourself is projection of guilt. You'll notice any of that blaming, accusation, attack thoughts, blaming, complaint, any of those patterns going on, and just mind yourself that I've never sinned, and so I need no awakening. You exhale. Flow it all away, the breeze of your breath like black smoke out of your mouth, all that guilt and that sin. The projection of that is blame, gone out of your life, out of your mind, out of your energy system. Blow it out. The nothingness that it really is. Pull the lower stomach into the spine. You expel the last remaining air out. And you just rest here in this deep peace and stillness for a few moments. Notice on the count of 2 the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground, noticing what you're feeling and touching, subtle taste in your mouth, perhaps a smell in your nose. Notice what you're hearing. Just noticing all these things in this very still, calm and surrendered state. Anchor the state in, so a state of guiltless innocence, freedom, light, peace, joy, all in the state. Set the intention to stay there for the rest of the evening. So it is said and so it is done. And on the count of 3, open your eyes. So I just take a minute to look around, observing the objects in the room around you. Perhaps everything is cleaner, lighter, purer, more innocent. So you're observing from an innocent perception. You judge nothing. Just is. It is. It sits there. You don't mentally label, judge, interpret it. And scan your mind, go from one object to another. Could say half a dozen objects. Just be aware of them and notice that it's the same awareness. Same awareness underlies everything. All your perceptions permeate with this innocent awareness, the guiltless awareness that you are the sun or extension of perfect love. So I wish you an evening in which you remain in that presence. If you need to top yourself up and remind yourself, listen to today's lesson. Yesha recommends ideally 5 minutes every hour. Just check in with it, do a breath break. I've sent you a couple of breath breaks you can use, or instructions to do it in under a minute if 5 minutes is too long for you. So they'll keep you connected to your source, the one self, and in the innocence. So I wish you a very peaceful, innocent, flowing evening ahead. It brings us to the end of the session. So thanks everyone who joined, Susie and Elaine. And I hope you enjoyed the recordings if you're listening to recordings. So namaste. It's me signing off for the day. I will post everything on Telegram and see you tomorrow afternoon at 12:30 UK time, 1:30 SA time. Namaste.